When an 11-year-old boy named Devin stood outside the Chicago Stadium that cold March night, he was shaking, not from the freezing wind cutting through his thin jacket, not from excitement about meeting his hero, Michael Jordan. He was shaking because, hidden on the back of his poster, were 4 desperate words that could either save his sister's life or crush his last hope forever. The crowd pushed and shoved around him. Everyone wanted to get close to the greatest basketball player in the world. Security guards were yelling, moving people back, protecting Jordan from the chaos. And Devin, the smallest kid there, was getting pushed further and further away from his one chance. That's when the massive security guard named Greg reached out his huge hand and started pushing Devin backwards, away from the rope line, away from Michael Jordan, away from everything. Devin's poster started to slip from his fingers. His one chance was disappearing. His sister Elena was dying in a hospital bed right now, and this was supposed to save her. But then, everything stopped. A deep, calm voice cut through all the noise. A voice Devin had heard 1,000 times on TV, but never in real life. A voice that belonged to the most famous athlete on earth. "Let the kid through." Michael Jordan himself had stepped forward. His hand was on Greg's shoulder, and his eyes were locked on Devin, this small, trembling boy who looked like his whole world was about to end. What happened next would change Devin's life forever. It would save his dying sister. And it would teach the world a lesson about courage that still matters today, 30 years later. But here's what you need to know. Devin wasn't just another fan wanting an autograph. The words on the back of that poster, the words he was terrified to show Michael Jordan, would make the basketball legend do something incredible. Something that proves real heroes don't just win championships, they save lives. Watch this whole video to discover what those 4 words were, why Devin's sister was dying, and how one moment of courage from a scared kid changed everything. Because this isn't just a story about meeting someone famous. This is a story about the bravest shot anyone ever took, and you need to hear how it ends. The Chicago wind cut through Devin Martinez's thin jacket like tiny knives. He didn't care. His sneakers were worn down to almost nothing, and his toes were numb inside them. He didn't care about that either. All that mattered was the man standing 30 feet away, surrounded by security guards who looked like mountains in suits. Michael Jordan. Devin clutched his poster so tightly that the edges crumpled in his sweaty palms. He'd made it himself last night at the kitchen table while Elena watched, her face pale but smiling. She'd helped him color in the number 23 with red marker, her hands shaking just a little. At the time, Devin thought she was shaking because she was excited for him. Now he knew better. "Move back! Everyone move back!" A security guard named Greg, at least that's what his badge said, pushed against the crowd of fans pressing forward outside the United Center. It was March 28, 1996, and the Bulls had just destroyed the Celtics. The 20 contest winners were supposed to get their moment with MJ, but the crowd of regular fans had gotten out of control. Devin was one of the smallest kids in the winner group. At 11 years old, he barely reached most adults' shoulders. When the crowd surged forward, someone's elbow caught him in the back. He stumbled, his poster tilting dangerously. "Watch it!" Marcus Chen, his best friend, grabbed his arm to steady him. Marcus had lost the contest but convinced his mom to bring them both anyway. "Don't drop it, Dev!" But the crowd pushed again, harder this time. People were yelling Jordan's name, waving jerseys and basketballs and photographs. Security was shouting instructions that no one could hear over the chaos. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Devin felt himself being shoved backward, away from the rope line where he was supposed to stand, away from his one chance. "No," he whispered. "No, please." Greg, the massive security guard, turned and saw the crowd pushing toward Jordan. His face went hard. He reached out with one enormous hand and started moving people back, including Devin. "Kid, you gotta move. Get back with the others." "But I'm a winner. I'm supposed to..." Devin's voice cracked. He felt tears burning his eyes and he hated himself for it. He'd promised himself he wouldn't cry. Not today. Today he had to be brave. For Elena. Greg wasn't listening. He was just doing his job, protecting Michael Jordan from a mob of fans who were getting too close, too wild. His hand pressed against Devin's shoulder, pushing him away from the rope line. Devin's poster started to slip from his fingers. Then everything stopped. "Let the kid through." The voice was deep, calm, and so famous that Devin had heard it 1,000 times on TV. But hearing it in real life, just a few feet away, made his whole body freeze. Michael Jordan had stepped forward. His hand was on Greg's shoulder. "Mr. Jordan, the crowd is—" Greg started. "I see the crowd." Jordan's eyes were locked on Devin. "But I also see this kid, and he's not part of the problem. Let him through." Greg hesitated for only a second, then stepped aside. The other security guards created a protective barrier, holding back the surging fans. Jordan gestured to Devin with one hand. "Come on, it's okay." Devin's legs didn't want to work. He stood there frozen on the cold Chicago sidewalk, with Marcus pushing him gently from behind and whispering, "Go! Go!" Somehow Devin's feet started moving. 1 step, 2 steps. The crowd noise faded to a dull roar in his ears. All he could see was Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player in the world, waiting for him. When Devin reached the rope line, Jordan crouched down so they were almost eye to eye. Up close, his face was exactly like it looked on TV. Strong, focused, with eyes that seemed to see everything. "You okay, son?" Jordan asked. Devin opened his mouth. He'd practiced this moment 100 times. He knew exactly what he wanted to say, but now, standing here, with Jordan looking right at him, all the words disappeared. His hands were shaking worse than Elena's had been last night. Jordan noticed. "Tough crowd tonight, huh? Don't worry about them. This is your moment. What's your name?" "Devin. Devin Martinez." "Nice to meet you, Devin Martinez." Jordan smiled. And it was the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. "That's a great poster. Did you make it yourself?" Devin nodded. His throat felt tight. This was it. This was his chance. But suddenly he couldn't remember his plan. He couldn't remember the speech he'd prepared or the questions he'd wanted to ask. All he could think about was Elena in that hospital bed, her face gray against the white pillow, telling him to go, to have this moment. "Tell him," Elena's voice whispered in his memory. "If you get the chance, tell him." Devin's hand moved almost on its own. He flipped the poster around. On the back, in desperate, messy handwriting he'd added in the hospital bathroom, while his mother signed Elena's admission papers, were 4 words that had taken every ounce of courage he possessed to write. "My sister is dying." Michael Jordan's smile faded. His eyes moved from the words to Devin's face, and something changed in his expression. It wasn't pity, it was something deeper. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. The crowd noise seemed very far away now. Jordan stood up slowly, still looking at Devin. Then he glanced at his security team and back at Devin again. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. "Come with me, right now." He held out his hand. Devin took it. Behind them, Marcus gasped. The other contest winners stared. Greg, the security guard, looked confused. Camera flashes exploded as photographers captured the moment. Michael Jordan leading a small, shaking boy away from the crowd. Through a door marked, "Private Authorized Personnel Only." The door closed behind them, and the chaos disappeared. Devin was alone with his hero, and he had no idea if what he'd just done was the bravest thing he'd ever do, or the craziest. 3 months earlier, Devin Martinez had been invisible. Not literally invisible, of course, but in a city like Chicago, in a neighborhood like Pilsen, kids like Devin, quiet, small, always watching, might as well have been ghosts. People looked right through them. It was a cold January morning when this story really began, though Devin didn't know it yet. He sat at the tiny kitchen table in their apartment on 18th Street, eating cereal that had gone soggy because he'd been staring at the wall, lost in thought. "Earth to Devin," his sister Elena snapped her fingers in front of his face. "You're gonna be late for school again." Elena was 16, but she looked older. She had their mother's dark eyes and thick black hair that she always wore in a ponytail because she said she didn't have time to fuss with it. She was already dressed for school in jeans and a sweater she'd owned for 3 years, the sleeves frayed at the edges. "I'm going," Devin muttered, but he didn't move. Elena sat down across from him, even though Devin knew she had to leave in 5 minutes to catch her bus. "What's wrong, pequeño?" "Nothing." "Liar." Elena reached across and flicked his forehead gently. "Come on, tell me." Devin stirred his soggy cereal. Their apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms, a kitchen barely big enough for their table, and a living room where the couch had a spring that poked through the cushion. The radiator clanked and hissed but never got quite warm enough. Outside the window, he could see the brick wall of the building next door, so close he could almost touch it. "Marcus says his dad is taking him to a Bulls game next month," Devin finally said. "For his birthday." Elena's face softened. "Oh, Dev, it's stupid. I don't even care that much." But his voice betrayed him, cracking on the last word. "It's not stupid." Elena reached across and grabbed his hand. Her fingers were cold, always cold lately, even inside. "You love basketball more than anyone I know. It's not stupid to want things." "Yeah, but wanting doesn't make them happen." Devin pulled his hand away and stood up, dumping his cereal bowl in the sink. "That's what Mommy always says, right? Querer no es poder. Wanting isn't the same as being able to." Elena stood too, grabbing her backpack from the floor. It was covered in patches she'd sewn on herself, a rainbow, a peace sign, the Puerto Rican flag. "Mommy says that because she's tired, not because it's true. Don't listen to tired people about dreams, Dev. They've forgotten how to have them." Devin wanted to argue, but Elena was already heading for the door. She stopped in the doorway and turned back. "Hey, after school today, come to the community center. Marcus will be there playing pickup. I'll watch your game before my shift." "You don't have to. I want to." Elena smiled, but Devin noticed she was gripping the doorframe a little too tightly. "I like watching you play. You're good, pequeño. Really good. Better than you think." Then she was gone, her footsteps echoing down the stairwell. Devin stood in the empty apartment for a moment. Their mother, Rosa, had already left for her morning shift at the hotel downtown. She cleaned rooms for 8 hours, then went straight to her evening job at a restaurant in Lincoln Park, washing dishes until midnight. Devin sometimes went whole days without seeing her, except when she kissed his forehead at night, smelling like bleach and fryer oil. He looked around the apartment, at the walls that needed painting, at the TV that only got 3 channels, at the Bulls poster he'd bought with allowance money he'd saved for 2 months. Michael Jordan mid-jump, tongue out, defying gravity. Wanting doesn't make it happen, he whispered to the empty room. Then he grabbed his own backpack and headed to school. The community center on Ashland Avenue was the one place in the neighborhood where Devin felt like he could breathe. It was old, the paint peeling, the hardwood floors scuffed to a dull shine. But it had 2 basketball courts and stayed open until 8 o'clock every night. That afternoon, Devin pushed through the doors and immediately heard the sound that made everything else disappear. Basketballs hitting the floor like heartbeats. "Dev, finally!" Marcus Chen waved from the far court. He was already sweating, his black hair sticking up in every direction. Marcus was loud where Devin was quiet, confident where Devin was careful. They'd been best friends since 3rd grade when Marcus had punched a kid who was making fun of Devin's hand-me-down shoes. Devin dropped his backpack on the bleachers and jogged over. 4 other kids were there, Carlos, Jamal, and 2 brothers named Miguel and Luis. They played here almost every day after school, running full-court games until the staff kicked them out. "Teams?" Carlos asked, spinning the ball on one finger. They chose up, Devin and Marcus on one side, Carlos, Jamal, and Miguel on the other. Luis called fouls since they had uneven numbers. The game started and something magical happened. It always did when Devin played basketball. The quiet kid who barely spoke in class, who sat in the back and hoped teachers wouldn't call on him, who walked through the world trying not to take up space, that kid disappeared. On the court, Devin was someone else. He moved like water, like air, like something that couldn't be caught. He wasn't the biggest or the fastest, but he saw things before they happened. He knew where his teammates would be, where the ball needed to go. And when he shot, when his feet left the ground and the ball left his hands, time seemed to stop. Swish. "Man, how do you do that?" Jamal shook his head as Devin's 3rd straight shot dropped through the net. "You don't even look where you're shooting." He's got that MJ magic, Marcus said, grinning and slapping Devin's hand. Ice in his veins. Devin felt his face get hot, but he was smiling. On the court, he could be confident. On the court, people saw him. Again, Carlos called, and they ran it back. From the bleachers, Elena watched. She'd arrived halfway through the first game and sat quietly, her homework open on her lap but forgotten. She watched her little brother move across that court like he was born to be there, and her heart ached with pride in something else. Something she wouldn't name yet. She loved watching Devin play. It was the only time he looked truly happy. Her head throbbed with a dull pain that had been getting worse for weeks. She pressed her fingers to her temple and closed her eyes for a moment, waiting for it to pass. You okay, Elena? She opened her eyes. Marcus's mom, Mrs. Chen, had sat down beside her. Mrs. Chen volunteered at the community center 3 days a week, helping kids with homework in the computer room. Oh yeah, just tired, Elena forced a smile. School, you know. Mrs. Chen studied her with concerned eyes. You look pale, honey. Are you eating enough? I can pack extra lunch for you if… No, I'm fine. Really? Elena sat up straighter, trying to look healthier than she felt. Just studying too much. Maybe. On the court, Devin drove to the basket and made a layup that brought cheers from the other players. Elena's smile became real for a moment. He's special, Mrs. Chen said, watching Devin. Marcus talks about him all the time. Says Devin's going to play in the NBA someday. Maybe, Elena said softly. If we can keep him in school, keep him fed, keep him dreaming, that's the hard part, you know? Keeping the dream alive when everything else is trying to kill it. Mrs. Chen touched Elena's shoulder gently. You're a good sister. Better than good. You know that, right? Elena didn't answer. She just watched Devin play, memorizing the way he moved, the joy on his face, the impossible grace of a jump shot that seemed to hang in the air forever. She didn't know it yet, but she was memorizing because some part of her already understood she might not have forever to watch him. The headache pulsed harder, and Elena closed her eyes again. On the court, Devin hit another shot from the top of the key. Perfect form, perfect arc, perfect swish. Marcus shouted, "Ice in his veins!" And Elena whispered to herself, her eyes still closed, "Keep playing, pequeño. Keep being beautiful." That night, after Elena had left for her shift at the grocery store and Devin had finished his homework, the phone rang. Their apartment phone was old, the kind with a curly cord, and it hung on the kitchen wall. Devin answered. "Hello? Elena Martinez, please." The voice was professional, female, unfamiliar. "She's at work. Can I take a message?" There was a pause. "This is Dr. Morrison from Alivio Medical Center. We have some test results we need to discuss with her. It's important that she calls us back as soon as possible." Devin's stomach tightened. "Test results? Is she okay?" "I can only discuss this with the patient directly. Please have her call us tomorrow morning." The doctor gave a number and hung up. Devin stood in the kitchen, holding the phone, staring at nothing. Test results, medical center, important. When Elena came home at 9:30 that night, exhausted and smelling like the produce section, Devin was waiting on the couch. He'd been practicing basketball moves in the tiny living room, fadeaways and pivot moves, careful not to knock over the lamp. "Dr. Morrison called," he said. Elena's face went pale. She set down her backpack very carefully. "What did she say?" "That you need to call her back. About test results." Devin stood up. "Elena, what's going on? Are you sick?" "No." Elena shook her head quickly. "No, I'm fine. It's just, they did some blood work at school. The nurse thought I was anemic or something. It's nothing, Dev. I'm fine." She was lying. Devin could tell because Elena bit her bottom lip when she lied, just a little, and her eyes shifted to the left. "Elena, I'm fine." Her voice was firmer now. "I promise. Now come on, show me that fadeaway you were working on. I could hear you from the hallway." She smiled and Devin wanted to push, wanted to demand the truth. But Elena had that look on her face, the look that said she was trying so hard to keep everything together, and if Devin pushed, something might break. So he showed her his fadeaway instead, and Elena watched, leaning against the door frame because standing upright was getting harder. And she didn't tell him that the world had started tilting sometimes when she turned her head too fast. She didn't tell him that Dr. Morrison had seen something on the scans that worried her enough to call. She didn't tell him that she was terrified. She just watched her little brother play, and she clapped when he made an imaginary shot, and she said, "Perfect form, pequeño. Perfect." Behind her smile, Elena's world was starting to crumble. But Devin didn't know that yet. He wouldn't know for another 3 weeks. Elena Martinez collapsed on a Tuesday. It happened in the hallway between third and fourth period at Benito Juarez High School. One moment she was walking to her chemistry class, her books pressed against her chest. The next, the floor was rushing up to meet her face. She didn't pass out completely. That would have been easier in a way. Instead, she crumpled against the lockers, her vision swimming with black spots, her head exploding with pain so sharp it felt like someone had driven a nail through her skull. Hands grabbed her arms. Voices swam around her like she was underwater. "Elena! Elena! Can you hear me? Somebody get the nurse! Give her space! Everyone back up!" The voice that cut through the fog was deep and calm. Mr. Washington, her English teacher. He was kneeling beside her, his dark face creased with worry. "Elena, I need you to focus on my voice. Can you do that?" She managed a nod, though the movement made her want to vomit. "Good. Stay still. Help is coming." The school nurse arrived with a wheelchair. Elena wanted to protest, to say she could walk, but her legs felt like water. They wheeled her to the nurse's office, where the fluorescent lights made her headache even worse. Nurse Palmer was a round woman with kind eyes and no patience for teenagers who tried to hide things. She took Elena's blood pressure, checked her pupils with a small flashlight, and asked a dozen questions Elena tried to answer honestly. "How long have you been having headaches?" "A few weeks, maybe 2 months." "And the dizziness?" 3 weeks, I think." "Vision problems?" Elena hesitated. "Sometimes things get blurry, or I see double for a second." Nurse Palmer's mouth pressed into a thin line. She rolled her chair back and looked at Elena with an expression that made Elena's stomach twist. "Honey, you need to see a doctor. Today. These symptoms, they're not normal teenage stress headaches." "I don't have insurance," Elena said quietly, "and my mom works 2 jobs. We can't. There are free clinics, community health centers." Nurse Palmer was already writing something on a notepad. "I'm going to call your mother." "Please don't." Elena sat up too fast and the room spun. "She'll just worry, and she can't leave work. She'll lose her job if she keeps missing shifts." "Elena, I'll go to a clinic, I promise. Just not today, please." Before Nurse Palmer could argue, Mr. Washington knocked on the doorframe. He'd apparently followed them to the nurse's office and had been waiting outside. "May I speak with Elena for a moment?" Nurse Palmer looked like she wanted to refuse, but something in Mr. Washington's steady gaze made her nod. She stepped outside, closing the door behind her. Mr. Washington pulled up a chair and sat down with a heavy sigh. He was 56 years old and had taught at Juarez for 23 years. He'd grown up 6 blocks from where Elena lived, in the same kind of apartment with the same kind of struggling family. "I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to listen," he said. "When I was 17, my little sister got sick, started having headaches, getting dizzy. My mother kept saying it was stress, that she'd be fine. We didn't have insurance either. We waited too long." Elena's throat tightened. "What happened?" "She had a brain tumor. By the time we got her to a hospital, it was too late to operate safely. She survived, thank God, but she lost her vision in one eye and had to relearn how to walk." Mr. Washington leaned forward. "I'm not trying to scare you, Elena, but I am trying to tell you that pretending everything is fine doesn't make it fine. It just makes it worse." "I can't afford a doctor," Elena whispered. "Yes, you can. There's a free clinic on 26th Street, Alivio Medical Center. They work on a sliding scale based on income. And before you say you don't have time, I'm going to make you a deal." Mr. Washington pulled out his phone. "I'm going to call them right now and make you an appointment. You're going to go, and in exchange, I won't call your mother and tell her you collapsed in the hallway today." Elena stared at him. "That's blackmail. That's me caring about a student who's too stubborn for her own good." He was already dialing. "Do we have a deal?" Elena wanted to argue. She wanted to say she was fine, that she just needed to sleep more, eat better, stress less. But the truth was, she was terrified. The headaches were getting worse. The dizziness was happening almost every day now. And this morning, she'd seen double for a full minute while brushing her teeth. "Deal," she whispered. Mr. Washington made the appointment, Friday at 4 o'clock, 3 days away. Elena went home that afternoon instead of going to her shift at the grocery store. She called in sick, which she'd never done before, and lay on her bed in the apartment's dim bedroom, staring at the ceiling. Devin found her there when he got home from school. "Elena, why are you home?" He dropped his backpack by the door. "Are you okay?" "Just a bad headache, pequeño. It's nothing." Devin sat on the edge of her bed. The mattress dipped under his weight. "You've been having a lot of headaches." "I know. I'm going to see a doctor on Friday. Mr. Washington made me an appointment." Relief flooded Devin's face. "Good. That's good, right?" "Yeah." Elena managed a smile. "It's probably nothing. Probably just need glasses or something." She was lying again, and this time Devin knew it for certain. But he didn't push. Instead, he did something that made Elena's heart break a little. "Want to watch me practice?" Devin asked. "I've been working on a new move. I can do it in the living room." Elena nodded, blinking back tears. "I'd love that." Friday came too quickly. Elena took the bus to Alivio Medical Center alone. She'd told Devin she had a study group after school, and he'd believed her because he wanted to believe her. Rosa was working and knew nothing about any of this. The clinic was crowded, full of families speaking Spanish and English and a dozen other languages. Children ran between chairs while their parents filled out paperwork. A TV in the corner played a Spanish-language soap opera with the volume too loud. Elena gave her name to the receptionist and waited, and waited, and waited. 2 hours later, a nurse called her back. They took her vitals, asked the same questions Nurse Palmer had asked, and then led her to an examination room where she waited another 30 minutes. When Dr. Patel finally entered, Elena liked her immediately. She was a small Indian woman with gray-streaked black hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Elena Martinez, Dr. Patel read from a chart, 16 years old, experiencing severe headaches, dizziness, vision problems. How long? Elena told her everything. Dr. Patel listened without interrupting, making notes on her tablet. When Elena finished, the doctor asked if she could perform a neurological exam. For 20 minutes, Dr. Patel tested Elena's reflexes, her balance, her vision, her coordination. She shined lights in Elena's eyes and asked her to follow her finger. She had Elena walk in a straight line, stand on one foot, touch her nose with her eyes closed. Elena failed several of the tests. "I'm going to be direct with you," Dr. Patel said, sitting down on the rolling stool. "Your symptoms concern me. The combination of severe headaches, vision problems, and balance issues could indicate several things. But I want to rule out the serious possibilities first. I'd like to order an MRI." Elena's mouth went dry. "An MRI? That's expensive, right? We have a program that covers imaging for patients without insurance. But Elena, I need to be honest with you. If the MRI shows what I suspect it might show, treatment could be expensive, very expensive." "What do you suspect?" Dr. Patel hesitated, and that hesitation told Elena everything she needed to know before the words came out. "I suspect you may have a brain tumor." The room seemed to tilt. Elena gripped the edges of the examination table to keep from falling. "A tumor," she repeated numbly. "I could be wrong. That's why we need the MRI. But the constellation of symptoms, the progression, it fits the pattern." Dr. Patel's voice was gentle but firm. "The good news is that many brain tumors, especially in young people, are treatable. But we need to know what we're dealing with." Elena couldn't breathe. A tumor in her brain. The thing that made her Elena, her thoughts, her memories, her love for Devin. Something was growing inside it, pressing against it, hurting it. "When can I get the MRI?" Her voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. "I can schedule it for Monday. We'll have results within a few days." Elena nodded mechanically. Dr. Patel kept talking about the procedure, about what to expect, about next steps. But Elena heard almost none of it. Her mind had gone somewhere else, to a place where Devin was alone, where her mother was working herself to death with no one to help, where all the dreams she'd had for college and a future had just evaporated like morning fog. "Elena," Dr. Patel touched her arm. "Are you listening?" "Yes." "Is there someone you can bring with you? A parent? A friend?" "No." Elena stood up, smoothing down her jeans with shaking hands. "I'll come alone. It's fine." "Elena, thank you for seeing me, Dr. Patel. I'll be here Monday." She left before the doctor could say anything else. The bus ride home was a blur. Elena stared out the window at the familiar streets of her neighborhood, at the corner store where she bought milk, at the laundromat where she did their family's washing every Sunday, at the community center where Devin played basketball. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. By the time she got back to the apartment, she'd made her decision. She wouldn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not until she knew for sure. Why make everyone worry if it turned out to be nothing? But it wasn't nothing. Deep down, Elena knew that. Devin was in the living room practicing his fadeaway with an imaginary ball. He stopped when she came in. "How was study group?" "Good." The lie came easily now. Too easily. "Really productive." "You look tired." "Long day." Elena dropped onto the couch. "Come here. Show me that move you've been working on." Devin grinned and demonstrated his pivot and fade, his movements smooth and confident. Elena watched, memorizing every detail, every gesture, every expression of joy on his face. She didn't know how much longer she'd be able to watch him play, but she knew she would fight with everything she had to make that time as long as possible. Even if it meant lying, even if it meant suffering alone, even if it meant breaking her own heart every single day. Because that's what love was. That's what being a sister meant. Devin made his imaginary shot and looked at her expectantly. Elena smiled and clapped. Perfect. Pequeño. Absolutely perfect. And somewhere deep in her brain, something dark and terrible continued to grow. The flyer appeared on the community center bulletin board on a Wednesday morning in late February. Bright red with bold black letters, it practically screamed for attention. Meet Michael Jordan. Win a chance to meet the greatest basketball player alive. 20 lucky winners will attend a Bulls game and meet MJ after. Essay contest for kids ages 8-14. Deadline, March 10th. Marcus saw it first. He burst into their classroom during lunch period, waving a photocopy so wildly that Mrs. Henderson told him to calm down before he hurt someone. Devin, look at this! Marcus slammed the paper on their cafeteria table, nearly knocking over Devin's chocolate milk. Devin picked up the flyer, his heart starting to pound before he'd even finished reading. Michael Jordan, in person, a chance to actually meet him, to talk to him, to... We have to enter, Marcus said, bouncing on his toes. We have to. This is destiny, man. It's a sign. It says write an essay. Devin's excitement dimmed. About why basketball matters to you. So? You love basketball? Yeah, but I'm not good at writing. Devin set down the flyer, trying to ignore the hope fluttering in his chest like a trapped bird. You should enter. You'll probably win. Are you kidding? You're entering too. Both of us are. Come on, Dev. When are we ever going to get another chance like this? Devin looked at the flyer again. At Michael Jordan's face in the corner, mid-dunk. Defying gravity and logic and everything that said a kid from a place like this couldn't dream impossible dreams. Okay, Devin said quietly. I'll try. Marcus whooped so loud that 3 teachers turned to look. That night, Devin sat at the kitchen table with a blank piece of notebook paper in front of him. He'd been sitting there for an hour. The paper was still blank. How do you explain why basketball matters when the real answer is too big for words? Basketball was the only place he felt brave, the only place people saw him, the only place where being small didn't matter, where having worn-out shoes and hand-me-down clothes disappeared, where the fact that his father had left and his mother was never home and his future felt like a locked door. None of it mattered when he had a ball in his hands. But how do you write that without sounding pathetic? The apartment door opened and Elena came in. She looked exhausted, her face pale and her movements careful, like she was carrying something fragile. She'd been to another doctor's appointment that afternoon, At least that's what Devin thought. She'd been going to a lot of appointments lately, always with the same excuse. Just follow-up stuff, nothing to worry about. But Devin was worried. Elena didn't look like herself anymore. She'd lost weight she didn't have to lose. Dark circles ringed her eyes, and sometimes, when she thought Devin wasn't looking, her face twisted with pain. "Hey, Pequeño." Elena dropped her bag by the door and came to sit across from him. "What are you working on?" "Nothing. It's stupid." Devin started to close his notebook, but Elena's hand stopped him. "That flyer." She picked up the contest announcement he'd brought home. "You're entering?" "Trying to. I can't think of what to write." Elena read the requirements silently. When she looked up, her eyes were bright. Too bright, like she might cry. "Tell me what you want to say. Don't write it yet. Just talk to me." Devin hesitated. "I don't know. Basketball is... It's everything. It's the only time I feel like I'm good at something. Like I matter." "You matter all the time." "Not like on the court. On the court, people notice me. They see me. The rest of the time, I'm just..." He gestured vaguely at himself. "Nobody." Elena reached across the table and grabbed his hand. Her fingers were cold like always now, but her grip was fierce. "You listen to me, Devin Martinez. You are not nobody. You're smart and kind and talented. You're the best brother anyone could ask for. And if other people don't see that, it's because they're not paying attention. You have to say that. You're my sister. I say it because it's true." Elena squeezed his hand tighter. "Now come on. Let's write this essay. What does Michael Jordan mean to you?" For the next hour, Elena pulled words out of Devin like a magician pulling scarves from a hat. Every time he got stuck, she asked another question. "What do you feel when you play? What does it mean when you make a shot? Why does basketball matter more than other things?" Slowly, piece by piece, the essay took shape. But it was harder for Elena than Devin realized. The words on the page kept blurring. Her head pounded with a relentless ache that made it difficult to think. Twice she had to close her eyes and count to 10, waiting for a wave of dizziness to pass. Monday's MRI had confirmed Dr. Patel's suspicions. Glioblastoma, grade 4. The worst kind of brain tumor you could get. Aggressive, fast-growing, deadly. Elena had the scan results in her backpack right now, folded up in an envelope she couldn't bring herself to open in front of Devin. Dr. Patel had been blunt. "Without treatment, you have perhaps 6 months. With surgery and chemotherapy, we could extend that significantly." "But Elena, I have to be honest. The surgery alone costs between $50,000 and $70,000. Even with financial assistance programs, your family would need to pay at least $15,000 to $20,000 out of pocket. And that's before chemotherapy, which..." Elena had stopped listening. $15,000 might as well be $15 million. But she couldn't think about that now. Right now, Devin needed her. Right now, he was trying to write about hope and dreams and a future where impossible things happened. She would not take that away from him. Not yet. "Okay, read me what you have so far," Elena said, forcing her voice to stay steady. Devin picked up the paper and read haltingly. "Basketball taught me that even when you're small, even when people don't see you, you can still make the impossible shot." "That's good. Really good. Keep going." "My sister Elena taught me that watching someone you love never give up is the most important lesson of all." Elena's throat tightened. "Dev, is that okay? Should I not mention you?" "No, it's perfect." She blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. "What else?" Devin kept writing, his words coming faster now. Elena helped him shape sentences, fix grammar, make his meaning clear. They worked until nearly midnight, when Rosa came home from her evening shift and found them still at the table, surrounded by crumpled drafts and pencil shavings. "¿Qué hacen despiertos?" Rosa set down her purse, frowning. "It's a school night." "Homework, Mommy," Elena said quickly. "We're almost done." Rosa looked exhausted, too tired to argue. 5 more minutes, then bed." When their mother had gone to her room, Devin and Elena finished the final paragraph together. "I want to meet Michael Jordan because he plays like someone who knows what it means to keep fighting when everyone says you can't win. He plays like someone who understands that giving up is not an option. My sister taught me the same thing. She works and studies and takes care of me. And she never complains. She never quits." That's what basketball is really about. Not giving up, even when the game seems impossible. If I could meet Michael Jordan, I would tell him that he inspired me to keep playing. And I would tell him that my sister Elena is my Michael Jordan. Devin looked up. Is that good? Elena couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down her face, and she didn't bother to wipe them away. Elena, what's wrong? Is it bad? No, pequeño. She pulled him into a fierce hug, burying her face in his hair. It's perfect. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever read. Devin hugged her back, confused but pleased. So I should enter it? Yes. Absolutely yes. Elena pulled back, wiping her eyes. You're going to win this, Dev. I know it. You can't know that. Yes, I can. Elena touched his cheek gently. Because you wrote from your heart. That's the only way to write something that matters. They typed up the essay on the community center's computer the next day, with Marcus hovering over Devin's shoulder and offering suggestions that Devin mostly ignored. Marcus's own essay was funny and energetic, full of statistics about Jordan's career and predictions about the Bulls' season. Both boys sealed their essays in envelopes and mailed them to the radio station address on the flyer. Then they waited. 3 weeks passed. February turned into March. The weather stayed cold, but spring felt possible, like a promise hanging in the air. Elena's condition worsened. The headaches were constant now, controlled only by pills that made her drowsy. She'd had 2 more dizzy spells at school, and Mr. Washington had started watching her with worried eyes. She'd also started having trouble with her peripheral vision, like someone was slowly closing curtains on the edges of her world. Dr. Patel had called 3 times. Elena hadn't returned the calls. What was the point? She couldn't afford the surgery. She couldn't afford anything, and telling her family would only burden them with fear and grief they didn't need. Better to let Devin have his contest, his hope, his dreams of meeting Michael Jordan. Better to smile through the pain and pretend everything was fine. Better to love him as fiercely as she could while she still could. On March 15th, a Friday afternoon, Devin came home from school to find an envelope with the radio station's logo on it sitting on the kitchen table. His hands shook as he opened it. Elena stood in the doorway, holding onto the frame to keep steady, watching his face. Devin pulled out the letter and read it, then read it again, then looked up at Elena with an expression of pure, disbelieving joy. I won, he whispered. Elena, I won. Elena's smile was radiant, even as her vision started to blur at the edges. I knew you would. Devin rushed to her, hugging her so tightly she gasped. You have to come with me. March 28th, Bulls versus Celtics, and then we meet him after. You have to be there. Of course I'll be there, pequeño. I wouldn't miss it for the world. It was the first real lie she'd told him, because Elena knew in the deepest part of her heart that she might not make it to March 28th. The tumor was growing faster than anyone had predicted, but she would try. God, she would try. For Devin, she would try to hold on. Even if it killed her. 1 week before the game, Elena collapsed in the bathroom at home. Devin heard the crash and found her on the tile floor, conscious but disoriented, blood trickling from where she'd hit her head on the sink. He screamed for their mother. Rosa called 911, and in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, with Devin gripping her hand and crying, Elena finally had to tell the truth. I'm sick, pequeño, she whispered. I've been sick for a while. What's wrong? What is it? Elena looked at her little brother's terrified face and felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. I have a tumor, she said, in my brain, and I need surgery we can't afford. Devin's world stopped. Everything, the essay, the contest, Michael Jordan, basketball, all of it, suddenly meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was Elena. And she was dying. The hospital room was too white, too bright, too clean. Everything smelled like antiseptic and fear. Devin sat in a plastic chair beside Elena's bed, holding her hand. He hadn't let go since the ambulance. His mother Rosa stood by the window, her face carved from stone, speaking rapid Spanish into her phone. She was calling her supervisor at the hotel, begging for time off, begging to keep her job. Elena's head was bandaged where she'd hit the sink. An IV dripped clear fluid into her arm. Monitors beeped steadily, measuring things Devin didn't understand. How long have you known? His voice came out hoarse, broken. Elena turned her head to look at him. Her eyes were exhausted but clear. Since the MRI, about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Devin felt something hot and sharp twist in his chest. You knew for 2 weeks and didn't tell us? I didn't want to worry you. Didn't want to. Devin's voice cracked. Elena, you have a brain tumor. I know. She squeezed his hand weakly. But telling you wouldn't change anything. We still can't afford the surgery. I don't care about affording it. Devin was crying now, tears streaming down his face. I care about you. I care that you're sick and you didn't tell me. I care that you've been in pain and I didn't know. Rosa turned from the window, her own eyes red and swollen. Devin, calm it. No. He stood up, still gripping Elena's hand. She should have told us. We should have known. And what would you have done differently, mijo? Rosa's voice was gentle but firm. Would you have made the surgery cost less? Would you have made me earn more money? Would you have? I would have been there for her, Devin shouted. I would have helped. I would have. He couldn't finish. The sobs took over, shaking his whole body. Elena pulled him down to sit on the edge of her bed. She wrapped her arms around him and let him cry against her shoulder, her own tears falling into his hair. I'm sorry, Pequeño, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I just wanted you to be happy a little longer. I wanted you to have your contest and your dream. I wanted to give you that before. Don't. Devin pulled back, looking at her fiercely. Don't talk like that. You're going to be okay. We'll figure it out. We'll find a way. Elena and Rosa exchanged a look over Devin's head. It was a look full of things Devin didn't want to understand. Hopelessness, resignation. The arithmetic of poverty that said some problems couldn't be solved with determination alone. A knock on the door interrupted them. A doctor entered. Dr. Reeves, according to his badge. He was tall, black, with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too many impossible situations. Ms. Martinez, he nodded at Rosa. May I speak with you and Elena about the test results? My brother stays, Elena said immediately. Whatever you have to say, he should hear it. Dr. Reeves hesitated, then nodded. He pulled up a chair and opened a tablet, showing them images Devin couldn't quite make sense of. Gray swirls and dark spots that looked like storm clouds. This is your MRI from last week, Dr. Reeves said, pointing to one of the dark areas. And this is from the scan we just did. The tumor has grown significantly in 7 days. Rosa made a small sound, like she'd been punched. How bad is it? Elena's voice was steady, but Devin felt her hand trembling in his. Without intervention, we're looking at 3 to 4 months, maybe less, given the rate of growth. Dr. Reeves looked at each of them in turn. With surgery followed by radiation and chemotherapy, we could extend that timeline significantly, possibly years. The tumor's in a location that makes it operable, which is good news, but we can't afford it, Rosa said flatly. There are programs, financial assistance. We can work with you on payment plans. Doctor, Rosa's voice was tired, so tired. I work 2 jobs. I make $23,000 a year. I have $17 in my savings account. My daughter needs a $70,000 surgery. Please don't insult me by pretending a payment plan will fix this. The room fell silent, except for the steady beep of the monitors. Dr. Reeves closed his tablet slowly. I understand, and I'm sorry. But Ms. Martinez, Elena, I have to be clear. Without treatment, Elena will not survive. This type of tumor is aggressive. It will not slow down. It will not stop. Every day we wait makes the surgery more complicated. The prognosis worse. So you're saying she's going to die? Devin's voice was flat, dead. I'm saying that without treatment, yes. The outcome is not good. Elena squeezed Devin's hand. It's okay, Dev. I've known this for a while. I've made peace. I haven't. Devin turned to her, his eyes blazing. I haven't made peace. You can't just give up. I'm not giving up, Pequeño. I'm being realistic. No. Devin stood up, backing away from the bed. No, there has to be something. There has to be. He turned and ran from the room before anyone could stop him. Devin ended up in the hospital chapel, even though he didn't know if he believed in God. It was a small room with wooden pews and a stained glass window showing a dove. He sat in the front row and stared at that window until his eyes burned. Elena was dying. The words kept repeating in his head like a broken record. Elena was dying. His sister. The person who'd raised him, who'd helped him with homework and taught him to tie his shoes and stayed up with him when he had nightmares. The person who'd sacrificed everything so he could have something. She was dying, and there was nothing he could do. Except, the thought came slowly, like dawn breaking. Except there was one thing, one impossible, desperate thing. The contest. March 28th, 5 days away. Michael Jordan. Devin's hands started shaking again, but this time it wasn't from grief. It was from the birth of an idea so crazy, so unlikely, that it might actually work. Michael Jordan was famous for his charity work. Devin had read about it in sports magazines at the community center. Jordan donated millions to hospitals and schools. He'd built clinics. He'd helped kids. What if Devin could ask him for help? What if he could tell Jordan about Elena, about her tumor, about the surgery they couldn't afford, about how she was dying because they were poor? Would Jordan help? Could he? It was insane. Completely insane. Jordan probably heard sob stories every day. Why would he care about one more poor kid with a sick sister? But what other choice did Devin have? He stood up from the pew, his decision made. He would go to the game. He would meet Michael Jordan. And he would ask the most powerful, famous person he'd ever met to save Elena's life. It was a long shot, the longest shot imaginable. But basketball had taught him one thing. Sometimes the impossible shot was the only shot you had. When Devin returned to Elena's room, she was sleeping. Rosa sat in the chair beside the bed, her head bowed, lips moving in silent prayer. "Mommy," Devin said quietly. Rosa looked up, her face drawn with exhaustion. "The contest is in 5 days. I'm still going." "Devin, I don't think—" "I'm going," he said firmly. "Elena wanted me to go. She's been fighting to stay healthy enough for me to go. I'm not going to waste that." Rosa studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Okay, mijo. Okay." Devin didn't tell her his real plan. He didn't tell anyone. That night after they'd returned home and Elena had been admitted for overnight observation, Devin sat at the kitchen table with his poster from Michael Jordan. It was finished. Jordan's number 23 colored in perfect red, his name in bold letters, space for an autograph. Devin flipped the poster over to the blank backside. His hands shook as he picked up a marker. He wrote 4 words in desperate, messy handwriting. "My sister is dying then," smaller underneath. "Please help us." He stared at those words for a long time. They looked stark and terrible on the white poster board, like a scream made visible. But they were the truth. And sometimes the truth, as ugly as it was the only weapon you had. Over the next 5 days, Elena's condition stabilized enough for her to come home. The doctors gave her stronger pain medication and stern warnings about returning immediately if certain symptoms appeared. Elena spent most of her time sleeping. When she was awake, she was groggy from the pills, her words slurring slightly, but she insisted on helping Devin prepare for the game. "What will you say to him?" she asked one afternoon, lying on the couch while Devin practiced his introduction in front of her. "I'll tell him I'm his biggest fan. I'll tell him about the essay I wrote." Devin couldn't tell her about the words on the back of the poster. Not yet. "I'll thank him for inspiring me." Elena smiled weakly. "He'll love that. You'll be great, pequeño." Marcus came over the day before the game, practically vibrating with excitement. He'd lost the contest. His essay hadn't even made the semifinals, but he was thrilled for Devin. "You're going to meet Michael Jordan," Marcus kept saying, as if Devin might have forgotten. "Actual Michael Jordan. Do you realize how insane that is?" "I know," Devin said, but his mind was somewhere else. That night, Devin lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The poster sat on his desk, turned face down so Elena wouldn't see what he'd written on the back. Tomorrow. Tomorrow he would meet his hero. Tomorrow he would ask the impossible. Tomorrow he would either save Elena's life or lose his last shred of hope. He didn't sleep at all. March 28th dawned cold and clear. Elena was having a bad morning. She'd vomited twice and could barely stand without help. Rosa wanted to take her back to the hospital, but Elena refused. "Devin's game is tonight," she said weakly, clutching the bathroom sink. "I want to see him before he goes." "Elena, you can barely walk." "I'll be fine, Mommy. I just need to rest." But by afternoon, it was clear Elena wasn't fine. She was getting worse. Her coordination was off. She dropped a glass of water and couldn't seem to make her hand pick up the pieces. Her words were increasingly confused. She kept calling Devin by their father's name. At 5 o'clock, Rosa made the decision. "We're taking you to the emergency room." "No!" Elena tried to stand from the couch and nearly fell. "Devin needs to go. Mrs. Chen is picking him up in 30 minutes. He needs—" "I'll stay," Devin said immediately. "I don't need to go to some stupid game." "Don't you dare!" Elena's voice gained strength from somewhere deep inside. She grabbed Devin's arm with surprising force. "Don't you dare give this up. You earned this. You're going to meet Michael Jordan. You're going to tell him about your dreams. And you're going to come back and tell me every single detail. Do you understand? But you're sick. I'll be here when you get back." Elena pulled him close, pressing her forehead against his. "I promise, Pequeño. I'll be here. But you have to go. You have to do this. For both of us." Devin looked at his mother. Rosa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Mrs. Chen will take you," Rosa said. "I'll stay with Elena. Go, mijo. Make your sister proud." So Devin went. He grabbed his poster, both sides now holding desperate truths, and walked out the door. Behind him, Rosa called for an ambulance, and Elena, fighting through the fog in her brain, whispered, "Save him, MJ. Please, save my little brother's heart." Because she knew what Devin was really going to do, and she loved him for trying, even though she knew it was impossible. Even though she knew that some prayers were too big even for heroes. The Chicago skyline glittered against the darkening sky as Mrs. Chen's car pulled up to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Not the United Center. The hospital. Devin's phone had buzzed 20 minutes into the drive. His mother's voice tight with panic. "Elena's worse. We're at Northwestern. The ambulance just brought us." Mrs. Chen had immediately changed course, her face grim. She understood without needing explanation. Some things were more important than basketball games. Now Devin stood in the hospital parking lot, clutching his poster, paralyzed between two impossible choices. The United Center was 15 minutes away. The contest coordinators expected him at 6:30. The game started at 7. His chance to meet Michael Jordan, to ask for help, to save Elena. It was slipping away with every passing second. But Elena was inside this building, sick, scared, maybe dying. "Devin?" Mrs. Chen touched his shoulder gently. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know." His voice broke. "I don't know." "There's no wrong answer here, honey. Whatever you choose, it's okay." But that was a lie. There was a wrong answer. There had to be. If he went to the game, he might get the help Elena needed. But she'd be alone in a hospital bed, wondering where he was. If he stayed, he could hold her hand and be the brother she deserved. But the chance to save her life would vanish forever. Devin looked down at his poster. At the words on the back that no one had seen yet, his last desperate prayer written in marker. "I need to see her," he said finally. "Just for a minute. Then I'll decide." They rode the elevator to the 4th floor in silence. The neurological ward. Devin had learned that word today. He wished he could unlearn it. Rosa met them in the hallway outside Elena's room. Her eyes were swollen, her hands twisted together like she was trying to hold herself in one piece. "How is she?" Devin asked. "Stable. For now. They're giving her medication to reduce the swelling in her brain." "But Devin," Rosa's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's bad. The doctor says the tumor is pressing on areas that control motor function and cognition. She's confused. She keeps asking for you." Devin's chest tightened until he couldn't breathe. "Can I see her?" "Of course, mijo. But you should know, she doesn't look like herself right now." Nothing could have prepared Devin for what he saw when he entered that room. Elena lay in the hospital bed, smaller than he'd ever seen her. An oxygen tube ran under her nose. More IVs dripped into her arms. Monitors surrounded her like electronic guards, beeping and flashing and measuring the distance between life and death. But worst of all was her face. The left side drooped slightly. Her eyes, when they opened, struggled to focus. This wasn't Elena. This was what the tumor was turning her into. Dev! Her voice was slurred, like she'd been drinking. But Devin knew it was the pressure on her brain causing it. That you? Yeah. He crossed to her bedside, setting his poster down carefully. I'm here. Elena. Game. She tried to lift her head and couldn't. You're supposed to be at the game. I know. I just wanted to see you first. Elena's right hand, the one that still worked properly, reached for him. He took it, shocked by how cold her fingers were, how weak her grip had become. You have to go, she said, each word an effort. Have to meet Jordan. Elena, I can't leave you like this. Not like this. She squeezed his hand with what little strength she had. Listen to me, Pequeño. You listening? Yes. That essay you wrote, about me being your Michael Jordan. You remember? Devin nodded, tears spilling down his cheeks. You were wrong. Elena's eyes cleared for a moment, becoming sharp and fierce. I'm not your Jordan. You know why? Because Jordan never quit. Jordan fought until the very last second. Jordan took the impossible shot, even when everyone said it couldn't be made. Elena, that's you, Dev. You're the one who keeps fighting. You're the one who makes impossible shots. She paused, breathing hard. I'm just the person who gets to watch, who gets to believe. And right now I'm telling you, you have to take your shot. What shot? What are you talking about? Elena's eyes found the poster lying on the chair. Even with her vision failing, she could see the bold letters on the front. And she knew, with the intuition that comes from loving someone completely, what was written on the back. The shot that saves me, she whispered. I know what you're planning to do. I know you're going to ask him for help. Devin's throat closed. How did you? Because I know you, Pequeño. I know your heart. And I'm telling you, you have to go. You have to try. Even if it doesn't work, even if he says no, you have to take the shot. But you're here. You're sick. I should stay with you. I'll be here when you get back. The doctors are taking care of me. But that game, that chance, it's happening right now and it'll never happen again. Elena's hand tightened on his. Please, Dev, do this for me. Fight for me. Be brave for both of us. Devin looked at his mother, standing in the doorway. Rosa nodded through her tears. She's right, mijo. This might be the only chance. But what if something happens while I'm gone? What if you... He couldn't finish the sentence. Then you'll have done everything you could to save me, Elena said softly. And that's all anyone can ask. But Dev, if you stay here and I die anyway, knowing you gave up your one chance, that would break my heart worse than any tumor could. Mrs. Chen checked her watch. Devin, if we leave right now, we might still make it before the meet and greet ends. It was 6:45. The game had already started. But the meet and greet was scheduled for after, around 9:30. They might, just might, still have time. Devin looked at Elena, really looked at her, at the sister who'd raised him, who'd sacrificed everything, who even now, dying in a hospital bed, was thinking about his dreams instead of her pain. She was right. He had to go, not because the game mattered, but because saving her mattered, and this was his only shot. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. I love you, Elena. I love you too, Pequeño. Now go meet your hero. She smiled, that beautiful smile he'd known his whole life. And tell him your sister says thank you for inspiring you. Tell him that matters more than he knows. I'll tell him. Devin picked up his poster, holding it like a shield. I'll tell him everything. He turned to leave, but Elena called him back one more time. Dev? Yeah? Make it count. Whatever happens in that room with Michael Jordan, make every second count. Don't be shy. Don't hold back. Tell him the truth. The whole truth. That's the only shot worth taking. Devin nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Then he ran. Mrs. Chen was already moving toward the elevator. They burst through the hospital doors into the cold March night and sprinted for the car. United Center, Devin gasped as they peeled out of the parking lot. As fast as you can. Mrs. Chen drove like she was in a movie, weaving through traffic, running yellow lights, pushing her old Honda to its limits. Devin sat in the passenger seat, clutching his poster so tightly the edges crumpled. On the back, those 4 desperate words seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. "My sister is dying." The radio was tuned to the game. The Bulls were destroying the Celtics. Jordan had already scored 30 points. The announcers were calling it a masterpiece. Devin barely heard them. All he could think about was Elena in that hospital bed, fighting to stay conscious, to stay alive. Just long enough for him to try this impossible thing. "Please," he whispered to no one. To God, maybe. To the universe. To Michael Jordan, even though Jordan couldn't hear him yet. "Please let this work. Please." His phone buzzed. A text from his mother, Elena stable. Doctors giving her strong meds for the swelling. "She's sleeping now. Go get your miracle, mijo." Devin closed his eyes. A miracle. That's what they needed. And miracles, he'd learned from watching basketball, came from taking the shot even when logic said you'd miss. Even when the defender was in your face and time was running out, and everyone was screaming, and nothing made sense. You jumped anyway. You shot anyway. You believed anyway. The United Center came into view, its lights blazing against the night sky. Mrs. Chen pulled up to the entrance, where a security guard was directing traffic. "We're here for the contest," Devin said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'm one of the 20 winners, Devin Martinez." The guard checked his clipboard. "You're late. They started the meet and greet protocol 10 minutes ago. Please, my sister was in the hospital. I had to see her first. Please, I came all this way." Something in Devin's face must have convinced him. The guard radioed someone, spoke in low tones, then nodded. "Go to entrance C. Someone will meet you there. But hurry, Mr. Jordan doesn't have much time." Devin grabbed his poster and ran again, Mrs. Chen jogging behind him. Through the massive doors, past the concession stands already closing, down a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. A woman with a clipboard met them, looking harried. "Devin Martinez?" "Yes! You almost missed it. The other winners are already in line. Come on, quickly." She led him through a maze of corridors, past locker rooms and equipment storage, through doors marked authorized personnel only. The sounds of the arena faded behind them. Ahead, Devin could hear voices, excitement, the buzz of something important happening. They emerged into a large room where 19 other kids stood in a roped-off line. Beyond them, at the far end of the room, surrounded by security and photographers, stood Michael Jordan. Devin's heart stopped. There he was, in person. Real. The greatest basketball player who'd ever lived, talking to a kid holding a jersey, signing it, smiling his famous smile. The woman with the clipboard pushed Devin toward the back of the line. "Stay in order. When it's your turn, you'll have about 30 seconds. Mr. Jordan will sign one item, you'll get a photo, then you move along. Clear?" Devin nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Marcus suddenly appeared beside him, having snuck in with Mrs. Chen. "Dude, you made it! I thought you weren't coming. How's Elena?" "She's..." Devin's voice cracked. "She's fighting." Marcus's eyes went to the poster in Devin's hands. "That's awesome, man. He's gonna love it." If Marcus noticed that Devin was shaking, that his eyes were red from crying, that he looked like someone preparing to step off a cliff, he didn't say anything. The line moved forward. One kid after another met Jordan, got their signature, took their photo, moved on. Devin watched each interaction, trying to understand how this worked, how you compressed everything you needed to say into 30 seconds. It was impossible. 30 seconds wasn't enough to save a life, but it was all he had. The line grew shorter. 10 kids ahead of him. 5, 3. Devin's hands were sweating so badly he almost dropped the poster. He wiped them on his jeans, trying to breathe, trying to remember everything Elena had told him. Make it count. Tell him the truth, the whole truth. That's the only shot worth taking. 2 kids ahead, 1. Then a commotion outside near the main entrance. Fans had somehow gotten past the barriers, surging forward, shouting Jordan's name. Security moved quickly, pushing people back, creating chaos. Greg, the huge security guard, turned toward the crowd, his hand going to his radio, and Devin, standing at the front of the line now, stepped forward at exactly the wrong moment. Someone bumped him from behind, a fan trying to rush the rope line. Devin stumbled, his poster tilting, starting to fall. Greg saw the movement and reacted on instinct, his job to protect Jordan from anything unexpected. His massive hand reached out to push Devin back with the surging crowd. "Kid, you gotta move! Get back with the others!" Devin's poster slipped from his fingers. And then, "Let the kid through." Michael Jordan's voice, deep, calm, right there. Jordan stepped forward, his hand on Greg's shoulder, his eyes locked on Devin. On this small, shaking boy who'd just run from a hospital to be here, who'd left his dying sister to take an impossible shot, who looked like his whole world was balanced on the edge of a knife. "Come on," Jordan said, gesturing to Devin. "It's okay." Devin's legs moved on their own, carrying him forward across the line that separated ordinary kids from legends. He was standing in front of Michael Jordan. This was his moment, his one chance, his impossible shot, and he had no idea if his courage would be enough. Michael Jordan crouched down so he was eye level with Devin. Up close, he was more real than any poster or television screen could capture. There were lines around his eyes, a small scar on his chin, sweat still on his forehead from the game he'd just dominated. He smelled like the court, leather and effort, and something Devin couldn't name. Greatness, maybe. "You okay, son?" Jordan's voice was gentle, concerned. Devin opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His entire body was shaking. He'd practiced this. He'd rehearsed exactly what he'd say. "Mr. Jordan, thank you for inspiring me. Basketball changed my life. You're my hero." But those words felt hollow now, meaningless. They weren't why he was here. They weren't what Elena was fighting to stay alive to hear about. Jordan noticed the shaking. His eyes, dark, intelligent, seeing everything, moved from Devin's face to the poster clutched in his trembling hands. "You made this yourself?" Jordan asked, keeping his voice low, creating a bubble of calm in the chaos around them. Yes, sir," Devin managed to get the words out. "I colored it last night. My sister helped me." "Your sister?" Jordan smiled. "That's nice. What's her name?" "Elena." Just saying her name made Devin's throat close up. She's, He couldn't finish. The tears he'd been holding back all night suddenly broke through. He stood there in front of his hero, in front of photographers and security guards, and 19 other kids watching, and he cried like a child. Jordan's expression changed. The smile faded, replaced by something deeper. Recognition, maybe, of real pain versus the ordinary nervousness of a starstruck kid. "Hey, hey!" Jordan reached out and steadied Devin with a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay. Take your time. We're not in a hurry." Behind them, Greg the security guard shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Jordan, we're running behind schedule. We're fine." Jordan didn't even look back. His full attention was on Devin. "What's your name?" "Devin. Devin Martinez." "Okay, Devin Martinez. I can see you've got something important to tell me. So take a breath, and when you're ready, I'm listening." The kindness in Jordan's voice nearly broke Devin completely, but Elena's words came back to him. "Make it count. Tell him the truth. The whole truth." Devin wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Then with shaking fingers, he flipped his poster around. "My sister is dying." The words hit Jordan like a physical blow. Devin watched his face change, the easy smile vanishing, his jaw tightening, his eyes going from kind to something harder, more focused. Jordan stood up slowly, still looking at the poster. Around them, the noise of the meet and greet continued. Other kids laughing, cameras flashing, the contest coordinator calling for the next person in line. But in the space between Jordan and Devin, everything had gone silent. "Come with me," Jordan said quietly. "Right now." He held out his hand. Devin took it. Jordan's hand was large, warm, calloused from years of holding a basketball. It felt solid, real, like an anchor in a storm. Jordan turned to Greg and the other security personnel. "Clear the room. Everyone out except Devin." "Sir, we have 18 more winners waiting." "They'll get their turn, but this kid needs privacy." Jordan's voice had changed. This wasn't a request. This was the voice of someone who'd led the Bulls to 4 championships. who'd stared down opponents twice his size and never blinked. Now, the security team moved. Within 30 seconds, the room was clearing. The other contest winners were ushered out. Marcus shot Devin a confused, worried look as he left. The photographers protested, but were firmly escorted away. The coordinator tried to argue about schedules and obligations, but one look from Jordan silenced her. In less than 2 minutes, the room was empty except for Devin, Jordan, and one security guard stationed by the door, far enough away to give them privacy. Jordan led Devin to a pair of chairs in the corner, away from the lights and cameras. He sat down and gestured for Devin to do the same. "Okay," Jordan said, "tell me everything, and don't leave anything out." So Devin told him. The words poured out like water from a broken dam. He told Jordan about Elena, about how she'd raised him while their mother worked 2 jobs, about how she helped with his homework every night, even when she was exhausted, about how she'd been his mother and father and best friend all rolled into one. He told him about the headaches that got worse and worse, about the collapse in the bathroom, about the MRI that showed a tumor the size of a golf ball growing in her brain. He told him about the surgery that cost $70,000, about the $15,000 they'd need even with financial assistance, about his mother's $17 in savings. He told him about Elena in the hospital right now, her face drooping, her words slurred, fighting to stay conscious long enough to hear if Devin's impossible prayer had been answered. "She made me come tonight," Devin said, tears streaming down his face again. "She's dying in a hospital bed, and she made me leave her so I could meet you. Because we thought, maybe you could help. I know that sounds crazy. I know you probably get asked for money all the time, but I didn't know what else to do. She's my whole world, Mr. Jordan. She's everything, and I can't lose her. I can't." His voice broke completely on the last word. He sat there, head bowed, shoulders shaking, feeling like the smallest, most helpless person who'd ever lived. Jordan was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Look at me, Devin." Devin lifted his head. Jordan's eyes were bright, suspiciously bright, like he might be fighting tears himself. "I'm going to tell you something I don't talk about much," Jordan said. "My father, James Jordan, he was my hero, not because he was famous or rich or special to the world, because he was special to me. He believed in me when I was just a kid from North Carolina who wanted to play basketball. He drove me to practice. He stayed up late shooting hoops with me in the driveway. He was at every game, cheering louder than anyone." Jordan paused, his jaw working. "When my father was killed in 1993, I thought my world was ending. I walked away from basketball. I couldn't play. I couldn't do anything. Because the person I played for, the person whose pride mattered most, was gone." Devin had read about James Jordan's death. Everyone had. It had been national news. "But you know what brought me back?" Jordan continued. "Remembering what my father taught me, that when life knocks you down, you get up. That when the game seems impossible, you play anyway. That the people we love never really leave us if we carry them with us." Jordan leaned forward, his eyes boring into Devin's. "Your sister, Elena, she's your James Jordan. She's the person who made you who you are. And you coming here tonight, leaving her hospital bed to ask a stranger for help? That took more courage than any shot I've ever made. Do you understand that? What you did tonight was braver than anything I've done on a basketball court. But it won't matter if you say no," Devin whispered. "If you can't help—" "I didn't say I couldn't help." Jordan stood up and pulled out his phone. "I said what you did was brave. Now let me show you what courage looks like from this side." Jordan stepped away, phone to his ear. Devin watched, hope and terror warring in his chest. As Jordan made one call, then another, then another. He spoke in low, intense tones, mentioning hospital names and doctor names and dollar amounts that made Devin's head spin. 10 minutes passed, 15, 20. Jordan kept calling, kept talking, his voice sometimes sharp, sometimes persuasive, always commanding. This was Michael Jordan, Devin realized, not as a basketball player, but as a force of nature. Someone who'd built an empire through will and determination. Someone who could make things happen with a few phone calls that ordinary people could never achieve in a lifetime. Finally, Jordan ended his last call and walked back to Devin. His face was unreadable. Northwestern Memorial Hospital, he said. That's where Elena is, right? Yes, sir. Devin's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. I just spoke with Dr. Marcus Reeves. He's one of the best neurosurgeons in the Midwest. He's reviewed Elena's case. I had my assistant pull her records while we were talking. He says the tumor is operable. Difficult, but possible. The surgery needs to happen within the next week, maybe sooner. We know, Devin said miserably, but we can't afford. The Michael Jordan Foundation is covering all costs, Jordan said simply. Surgery, hospitalization, chemotherapy, radiation, whatever she needs, full coverage. No payment plans, no debt, no bills. It's done. The words didn't make sense. Devin heard them, but they bounced off his brain like basketballs off a rim. He stared at Jordan, his mouth open, unable to process what he'd just been told. What? He finally managed. Your sister is getting the surgery. Dr. Reeves is putting her on his schedule. I don't know yet if it'll be tomorrow or the day after, but it's happening. Soon, and your family won't pay a penny. But why? Devin's voice was barely a whisper. You don't even know us. Why would you? Jordan crouched down again, looking Devin straight in the eye. Because you asked, he said simply. Because you were brave enough to ask. Do you know how many people suffer in silence? How many kids watch their families struggle and never say a word because they're too proud or too scared? You could have done that. You could have kept this to yourself. But you didn't. You took your shot. Jordan gestured to the poster, still clutched in Devin's hands. You flipped that poster around and showed me the truth. No fancy speech, no begging, just 4 honest words. That's courage, Devin. That's what real strength looks like. Being willing to be vulnerable when everything's on the line. Devin couldn't speak, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except let the tears flow as the reality sank in. Elena was going to get her surgery. She was going to live. She was going to be okay. Jordan pulled Devin into a hug, and Devin clung to him like a drowning person clutching a life raft. This man he'd never met, this hero from posters and TV screens, had just saved his sister's life with a few phone calls. Thank you, Devin sobbed into Jordan's shoulder. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't need to thank me. Jordan's voice was gruff with emotion. You just need to promise me something. Anything. When Elena gets better, and she will get better, you tell her she's got a guardian angel who wears number 23. You tell her that her little brother fought for her like a champion. And you tell her that the love you two have, that's more valuable than any championship ring I've ever won. Jordan pulled back, looking at Devin seriously. Money can pay for surgery, Devin, but it can't buy what you and Elena have. That kind of love, that's the real miracle. Don't ever forget that. Devin nodded, unable to stop crying. Jordan smiled and signed the front of Devin's poster with a message. To Devin, you took the shot that mattered most. Your courage saved the day. Keep fighting. MJ. Then he flipped it over and signed the back too, right below Devin's desperate words. And to Elena, your brother is a champion. Get well soon. We need people like you in this world. Michael Jordan. Now, Jordan said, standing up and helping Devin to his feet. You need to get back to that hospital. Your sister is waiting to hear what happened, and you've got the best story in the world to tell her. Jordan walked Devin to the door, one hand on his shoulder. Before they stepped out into the hallway where security and staff and the other contest winners were waiting, Jordan stopped. One more thing, Devin. Yes, sir? The world is going to tell you that what happened tonight was luck. That you got lucky meeting me. Lucky I said yes. Lucky everything worked out. Don't believe that. Jordan's eyes were fierce. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. You prepared by being brave. You seized your opportunity by asking for help. That's not luck. That's heart. He opened the door, and suddenly they were surrounded by people again. Marcus grabbing Devin and asking 1,000 questions. Mrs. Chen crying and hugging him. The coordinator trying to apologize for the confusion. Photographers asking for just one more picture. But all Devin could think about was getting back to Elena. Jordan seemed to understand. He nodded to Greg. Get them a car, whatever they need to get back to Northwestern Memorial. Tonight. Within minutes, Devin and Mrs. Chen were in a black SUV with a driver, speeding through Chicago toward the hospital. Devin clutched his sign poster and stared out the window at the city lights blurring past. Elena was going to live. His impossible shot had gone in. His prayer had been answered. And somewhere behind them, Michael Jordan was returning to the meet and greet, to the 19 other kids waiting for their 30 seconds of time with a legend. But one kid had gotten more than 30 seconds. One kid had gotten a miracle. And it wasn't because of luck. It was because sometimes when you're brave enough to show the world your pain, the world shows you its heart. The SUV pulled up to Northwestern Memorial Hospital at 10:47 p.m. Devin didn't wait for it to fully stop. He threw open the door and ran, his sign poster clutched against his chest like a shield. Mrs. Chen called after him, but he was already through the sliding glass doors, past the night reception desk, sprinting toward the elevators. A security guard moved to stop him, but something in Devin's face, joy and terror mixed together, made the man step aside. 4th floor, neurological ward, room 447. Devin burst through Elena's door, breathing hard, his heart hammering against his ribs. The room was dim. A single lamp glowed beside Elena's bed. Rosa sat in the chair beside her daughter, holding her hand, her head bowed in what might have been prayer or exhaustion or both. Elena was awake, her eyes clearer than they'd been hours ago. The medication must have kicked in, turned toward the door. When she saw Devin, her face transformed. "Pequeño," she whispered, "you're back." Devin crossed the room in 3 strides. He couldn't speak, couldn't find words big enough for what had just happened. Instead, he just held up the poster, turning it so Elena could see the back. Below Devin's desperate words, "My sister is dying," was Michael Jordan's signature and message. "And to Elena, your brother is a champion. Get well soon. We need people like you in this world. Michael Jordan." Elena stared at the words. Her good hand, the right one, reached out to touch the signature like she couldn't quite believe it was real. "He signed it," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Michael Jordan signed your poster. Elena." Devin knelt beside her bed, taking her cold hand in both of his. "He did more than sign it. He's paying for your surgery, everything. The operation, the treatment, all of it. The Michael Jordan Foundation is covering every penny." The words hung in the air like something impossible, like a basketball suspended at the top of its arc, defying gravity. Rosa's head snapped up. "Kay, what did you say?" "Michael Jordan is paying for Elena's surgery." Devin was crying and laughing at the same time. "I showed him the poster. I told him about Elena, and he made phone calls, like 10 phone calls. And he talked to doctors and people at his foundation, and he said it's done. Dr. Reeves is going to operate this week, maybe tomorrow, and we won't owe anything." Rosa stood up so fast her chair fell backward. "Devin, are you sure? Are you certain? This isn't, you didn't misunderstand." "I'm sure, Mommy. Jordan said it himself. Full coverage. No payment plans, no debt, no bills. It's done." Those were his exact words. Rosa's legs gave out. She sat down heavily on the edge of Elena's bed, her hands covering her face, her body shaking with sobs that seemed to come from the deepest part of her soul. These were tears she'd been holding back for weeks. Terror and helplessness and the unbearable weight of watching her child die because she couldn't afford to save her. Now suddenly, that weight was gone. Elena was crying too, tears streaming from both eyes, even the one that drooped. "He really said that? Michael Jordan really said he'd help us?" "More than that." Devin wiped his own eyes. "He said you were special. He said the love we have is more valuable than any championship ring. He said," Devin's voice cracked, "he said I was brave, that what I did tonight took real courage." "You are brave," Elena whispered. "The bravest person I know." "No," Devin shook his head fiercely. "You are. You've been fighting this alone for weeks. You've been in pain and scared, and you never told us because you didn't want us to worry. That's courage, Elena. What I did tonight, that was just desperation." "Sometimes they're the same thing," Elena said softly. Rosa reached across and pulled both of her children into an embrace, holding them like she'd never let go. The three of them stayed like that, crying and laughing and saying, "Gracias a Dios," over and over, until a gentle knock on the door interrupted them. Dr. Reeves entered, and Devin recognized him from earlier. The tall black doctor with kind eyes who delivered the impossible news. But now his face wore a different expression. Not hopelessness, something that looked almost like excitement. "I apologize for the late hour," Dr. Reeves said, "but I've just had a very interesting conversation with representatives from the Michael Jordan Foundation. They've asked me to review Elena's case with fresh eyes, knowing that cost is no longer a limiting factor in treatment options." "What does that mean?" Rosa asked, still holding her children. "It means we can be aggressive. The tumor is large and in a difficult location, but it's operable. I want to schedule surgery for day after tomorrow, Friday morning. That gives us time to do a few more scans, plan the exact surgical approach, and get Elena stabilized." "Day after tomorrow?" Elena's voice was small. "That's so soon." "The tumor is growing quickly, Elena. Every day we wait makes the operation more complicated." Dr. Reeves pulled up a chair and sat down, his manner calm and straightforward. "I'm not going to lie to you. This is a serious surgery. There are risks to your motor function, your vision, your cognitive abilities. But you're young and strong, and if we can remove the tumor cleanly, followed by targeted radiation and chemotherapy, your prognosis is very good. We're talking years, Elena. Decades, potentially." "Decades," Elena repeated, testing the word like it was foreign. "I thought I had months." "Without treatment, yes. With treatment?" Dr. Reeves smiled. "You could be sitting in a college classroom 5 years from now, complaining about homework like any other student. You could be walking your little brother to his high school graduation. You could have a whole life ahead of you." Devin felt something expand in his chest, hope so big and bright it hurt. Elena, alive. Elena, healthy. Elena, with a future. "What do we need to do?" Rosa asked. "For now? Rest. Let Elena sleep. Tomorrow we'll do the additional imaging, meet with the full surgical team, go over every detail of the procedure. Elena will sign consent forms. You'll ask every question you have, and then Friday morning at 6 a.m. we'll take her to surgery." Dr. Reeves stood up, preparing to leave. "One more thing. I've been a neurosurgeon for 23 years. I've seen hundreds of families face impossible situations. Most of them suffer in silence because they don't know what else to do. The fact that you asked for help, that young Devin here was brave enough to take his chance and speak up, that saved your sister's life, son. Don't ever forget that." After Dr. Reeves left, the family sat in silence for a long moment, processing everything that had happened in the last few hours. Finally, Elena spoke. "Dev, tell me everything. Every single detail. What was he like? What did he say? How did it happen?" So Devin told her the whole story, about arriving late because of her, about the crowd surging forward, about Greg trying to push him back, about Jordan's voice cutting through the chaos. "Let the kid through." He told her about flipping the poster, about Jordan's face changing when he read those 4 words, about being taken to a private room while everyone else was cleared out. He told her about Jordan's story of his own father, about the phone calls, about the moment Jordan said, "It's done." "He hugged me," Devin said, his voice full of wonder. "Michael Jordan hugged me and told me I was brave." "You are brave," Elena said again. "My pequeño, standing up to the world for me." "I learned it from you," Devin said. "You've been standing up to the world your whole life." Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway then, having given the family space but now checking to make sure everyone was okay. When she saw their faces, tear-stained but radiant with hope, she started crying too. "I'm taking you home," she told Devin gently. "Your sister needs rest and you need sleep. Big day tomorrow." Devin didn't want to leave, but Elena squeezed his hand and said, "Go, pequeño. I'll be here in the morning, I promise." "You better be," Devin said, trying to sound stern but failing completely, "because I've got more stories to tell you. Jordan told me about this one game where—" "Tomorrow," Elena interrupted, smiling. "You can tell me tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. We've got time now, Dev. We've got time. Time, such a simple word, such an impossible gift." Devin kissed Elena's forehead and followed Mrs. Chen out into the hallway. Rosa stayed behind, still holding Elena's hand, still whispering prayers of gratitude. In the elevator, Mrs. Chen looked at Devin with an expression he couldn't quite read. Pride and sorrow and joy all mixed together. "You know what you did tonight, don't you?" she said quietly. "I asked for help. You did more than that. You showed the world what love looks like. Real love. The kind that's willing to be vulnerable, to risk rejection, to stand in front of your hero and say, 'I'm broken and I need you.'" Mrs. Chen wiped her eyes. "That's the bravest thing a person can do, Devin. And because you did it, your sister gets to live." They drove home through empty streets, the city quiet in the late hour. When they pulled up to Devin's building, Marcus was sitting on the front steps, even though it was nearly midnight on a school night. "Dude!" Marcus jumped up as Devin got out of the car. "I've been waiting forever. What happened? Why did Jordan take you to that private room? Everyone was going crazy with rumors." Devin looked at his best friend, at his eager face full of questions, and suddenly realized that what had happened tonight was going to be a story he'd tell for the rest of his life. Not the part about meeting Jordan, though that was incredible, but the part about fighting for someone you love. "Elena's getting her surgery," Devin said simply. "Jordan's paying for it. She's going to be okay." Marcus's mouth fell open. Then he grabbed Devin in a hug so tight it squeezed the air from his lungs. No way, dude. That's... I know, Devin said, hugging him back. Michael Jordan is like a superhero. Yeah, Devin agreed. Yeah, he kind of is. They sat on the steps together while Devin told Marcus the abbreviated version of the story. Around them, Pilsen slept. The same neighborhood, the same streets, the same cramped apartments with their flickering lights and broken radiators. But for Devin, everything had changed. Tomorrow, Elena would begin preparing for surgery. Friday, they would try to remove the tumor that had been stealing her life piece by piece. And if it worked, when it worked, she would have a future. College, career, love, children of her own maybe. All because of a poster, 4 desperate words, and a man who could have said no, but chose to say yes. You know what the crazy thing is? Devin said to Marcus. Jordan told me I was brave, like multiple times. But I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. That's what bravery is, though, Marcus said. Doing the thing even when you're scared. That's what my dad always says. Courage isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. Devin thought about that, about standing in front of Jordan, shaking so hard he could barely hold the poster. About flipping it around to show those words even though part of him wanted to run away and hide. About choosing to ask for help instead of suffering alone. I guess you're right, Devin said finally. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the occasional car pass by, listening to the city sounds that were the soundtrack of their lives. Finally, Marcus stood up. I should go before my mom kills me. But Dev? Yeah? I'm really glad Elena's gonna be okay. She's like the coolest person I know. Besides you, I mean. She is pretty cool, Devin agreed, smiling. After Marcus left, Devin sat on the steps alone for a few more minutes, looking up at the small slice of sky visible between the buildings. Somewhere up there, stars were shining, even though the city lights made them hard to see. He thought about Elena in her hospital bed, probably sleeping now, her body gathering strength for the fight ahead. He thought about Michael Jordan, who'd taken time from his championship season to care about one kid and his dying sister. He thought about Dr. Reeves, who'd gone from delivering a death sentence to offering hope. And he thought about his mother, who'd worked herself to exhaustion trying to provide for them, who could finally stop carrying the weight of an impossible choice. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The surgery would be risky, recovery would be long. Nothing was guaranteed. But tonight, for the first time in weeks, Devin went to bed with hope instead of fear. Tonight, his impossible shot had swished through the net. Tonight, he learned that miracles weren't just things that happened to you. Sometimes, you had to be brave enough to ask for them. And sometimes, just sometimes, the world said yes. Friday morning arrived cold and gray, dawn breaking over Chicago like a held breath. Devin woke at 4:30, even though his alarm wasn't set until 5. He'd barely slept, his mind cycling through images. Elena's hospital room, Jordan's face when he'd read the poster, Dr. Reeves explaining the surgery with careful optimism. By 5 o'clock, he and Rosa were in a taxi heading to Northwestern Memorial. Rosa clutched her rosary, her lips moving in silent prayer. Devin held the signed poster on his lap, even though Elena had already seen it. Somehow it felt important to bring it, like a talisman of hope. The hospital was quiet at this hour, the hallways filled with the hushed efficiency of the night shift, preparing to hand off to the day staff. A nurse led them to a pre-operative area where Elena waited on a gurney, dressed in a hospital gown, an IV already running into her arm. She looked tiny, young, vulnerable in a way that made Devin's chest ache. But when she saw them, she smiled. "Hey, Pequeño, you're early." "Couldn't sleep." Devin took her hand, the one without the IV. "How are you feeling?" "Scared," Elena admitted, "but ready. Dr. Reeves came by earlier. He said the surgery could take anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. That's a long time, huh?" "We'll wait," Rosa said firmly, taking Elena's other hand. "We'll wait as long as it takes." A second nurse entered, checking Elena's vitals, reviewing her chart. "We'll be taking you back in about 15 minutes. The anesthesiologist will meet you in the OR prep room. Do you have any questions?" Elena shook her head. Then, after the nurse left, she turned to Devin with sudden urgency. "If something goes wrong..." "Elena, don't..." "Listen to me, Dev. If something goes wrong, I need you to know some things." Her eyes were fierce despite the fear in them. "You need to finish school. Go to college. Don't let mommy work herself to death. And basketball. You keep playing, okay? Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." "You're going to tell me all this yourself," Devin said, his voice shaking. "After the surgery, when you're awake and better." "Probably, but just in case, I love you, Pequeño. I love you more than anything in this world. Being your sister has been the greatest honor of my life." Devin couldn't hold back the tears anymore. "Being your brother has been mine." They stayed like that, foreheads pressed together, until Dr. Reeves arrived with his surgical team. He looked different in his scrubs and surgical cap, more serious, but his eyes still held that steady confidence. "Elena, we're ready for you. Your family can wait in the surgical waiting room on the 3rd floor. Someone will update them every few hours." "Wait." Elena looked at Devin one more time. "Did Michael Jordan really say I was special? You're not just making that up to make me feel better?" Devin pulled out his phone and showed her the photo Mrs. Chen had taken. Devin standing next to Jordan, both of them holding the signed poster. Jordan's arm was around Devin's shoulders, and his face held an expression of genuine warmth. "He said you're the real hero of this story," Devin said. "He said the love we have is worth more than any championship ring. He meant it, Elena." I could see it in his eyes. Elena stared at the photo for a long moment, then handed the phone back. "Tell him thank you for me. When I wake up, tell him Elena Martinez says thank you for seeing us, for caring." "I will," Devin promised. Then the orderlies were releasing the brake on Elena's gurney, and she was being wheeled away through double doors marked Surgical Suite, authorized personnel only. Rosa and Devin followed as far as they could, watching until Elena disappeared around a corner. The doors swung shut, and the waiting began. The surgical waiting room was painted a pale blue that was probably meant to be calming, but just looked sad. Uncomfortable chairs lined the walls. A TV in the corner played morning news with the sound muted. A coffee maker burbled in the corner, filling the air with a smell that was more bitter than comforting. Rosa and Devin sat side by side, not talking. What was there to say? All the words had been used up. Now there was only time. Time that stretched and compressed and twisted in strange ways. At 7 o'clock, Mrs. Chen arrived with Marcus and a bag of breakfast sandwiches no one felt like eating. At 8, Mr. Washington came, having somehow heard what was happening. He brought a stack of magazines and a sincere offer to sit with them as long as they needed. "Elena's one of my best students," he said quietly to Rosa. "Brilliant mind, kind heart. The world needs more people like her." At 9:30, a nurse came out with an update. "Surgery is progressing well. Dr. Reeves has successfully accessed the tumor. Everything is going according to plan." At 11, another update. "Dr. Reeves is removing the tumor now. It's slow, careful work. Elena's vitals are stable. At 1:15, we're in the final stages. Dr. Reeves is very pleased with how things are going. Each update brought a wave of relief followed immediately by renewed anxiety. Good news was still just news. Nothing was certain until Elena woke up, until they knew her brain had survived the trauma of being cut open and invaded. Devin tried to distract himself with his phone, with magazines, with anything, but his mind kept returning to Elena on that gurney, scared but trying to be brave. To her words, "Being your sister has been the greatest honor of my life." Around 2 o'clock, Marcus pulled Devin aside. "Come on, let's walk around. Your mom said it was okay." They wandered the hospital halls, past the cafeteria and gift shop, past rooms where other families faced their own impossible situations. In the chapel, the same one Devin had sat in days ago, Marcus finally spoke. "She's gonna make it, you know. Elena's too tough to let some tumor beat her." "I hope so." Devin sat in the same pew he'd occupied before. "Marcus, what if she's not the same after? What if the surgery damages something? Dr. Reeves said there could be problems with her motor skills, her memory, her personality. Then she'll still be Elena. Maybe different, but still your sister. Still the person who loves you and fights for you and makes you be better than you think you can be." Devin looked at his best friend. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just never listened to me." Marcus grinned. "Come on, let's get back before your mom thinks we ran away." They returned to the waiting room to find Rosa pacing, her rosary wrapped around her fingers so tightly they'd gone white. "Any news?" Devin asked. "Not yet. It's been almost 9 hours. Dr. Reeves said 8 to 12, so we're still—" The double doors opened. Dr. Reeves emerged, still in his surgical scrubs, his mask pulled down. He looked exhausted, but Devin's heart leaped. He was smiling. "Mrs. Martinez, Devin, Elena is out of surgery." Rosa's knees buckled. Mr. Washington caught her, helping her to a chair. "She's okay." Rosa's voice was barely audible. "The surgery went very well. We were able to remove the entire tumor, all of it. Clean margins, no visible cancer cells left behind." Dr. Reeves sat down across from them, his voice warm with professional satisfaction. Her brain tissue looked healthy. She maintained stable vitals throughout. "I'm very optimistic about her recovery." "When can we see her?" Devin asked. "She's in recovery now. It'll be a few hours before she wakes up from the anesthesia. Once she does, we'll monitor her carefully, checking her motor function, her speech, her cognitive abilities. The next 24 hours are critical, but Devin, your sister, is strong. She fought through 9 hours of surgery like a champion." Rosa was crying, her hands pressed to her face, her body shaking with relief so profound it looked like pain. Mr. Washington put a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Can I ask you something?" Devin said to Dr. Reeves. "Of course. You said before that most families suffer in silence, that they don't ask for help. Why is that?" Dr. Reeves considered the question. "Pride sometimes. Fear of rejection. Not knowing where to turn. The healthcare system is complicated, and when you're poor, it can feel like all the doors are locked." He leaned forward. "But you did something remarkable, Devin. You found a door and you kicked it down. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone has the courage. I didn't feel courageous. I felt desperate." "Sometimes that's the same thing," Dr. Reeves said, echoing Elena's words from days ago. "The bravest people I know are the ones who keep fighting even when they're terrified. That's you. That's your sister. That's your whole family." After Dr. Reeves left to check on other patients, the waiting room fell into a different kind of silence. Not the terrified silence of before, but something softer. The silence of relief, of gratitude, of hope tentatively blooming. Marcus and Mrs. Chen left around 4, promising to return the next day. Mr. Washington stayed until 5, then gave Rosa his phone number and told her to call if the family needed anything at all. At 6 o'clock, a nurse finally came to tell them Elena was awake. "She's groggy," the nurse warned, "and she might be confused. Brain surgery can affect people in unpredictable ways at first. Try not to be alarmed if she seems different." Rosa and Devin followed the nurse to the ICU, where Elena lay in a bed surrounded by more monitors than Devin had ever seen. Her head was wrapped in white bandages. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped and hummed. But her eyes were open. "Hey," she said, her voice hoarse and slurred. "You guys look terrible." Devin started laughing and crying at the same time. "You just had 9 hours of brain surgery and you're worried about how we look?" "Can't help it. I'm a worrier." Elena tried to smile, though only half her face cooperated. "Did Dr. Reeves tell you? Did it work?" "He got all of it," Rosa said, taking Elena's hand carefully, avoiding the IV lines. "Every bit of the tumor. You're going to be okay, mija. You're going to be okay." "I was so scared," Elena whispered. "The whole time, even when I was asleep, I think I was scared. But I kept thinking about you guys, about Dev meeting Michael Jordan, about having more time." "You've got time now," Devin said, moving to her other side. "Years and years. Decades," Dr. Reeves said. "You're going to be at my high school graduation. You're going to see me play college basketball." "College basketball?" Elena's eyes widened slightly. "Someone's confident. You always told me to dream big." "I did, didn't I?" Elena's eyes were starting to close, exhaustion pulling her back toward sleep. "Dev, did I say thank you? To Michael Jordan? Did you tell him?" "Not yet, but I will, I promise." "Good, that's important. He saved my life. He needs to know what that means." Within minutes, Elena was asleep again, her breathing steady, the monitors showing strong, healthy rhythms. A nurse came to check her vitals and assured them this was normal. Elena needed rest to heal. Rosa and Devin stayed in chairs beside her bed, neither willing to leave. As the evening wore on and visiting hours technically ended, the night staff kindly looked the other way. Around midnight, Devin finally dozed off, his head resting on the edge of Elena's bed, his hand still holding hers. He dreamed of basketball, of making the perfect fadeaway jumper, the ball arcing through the air in slow motion, hanging at the apex before dropping through the net with a satisfying swish. But when he landed and looked up, it wasn't a crowd cheering. It was Elena, healthy and whole, standing on the sideline with that proud smile he knew so well. In the dream, she said, "Perfect form, pequeño. Just perfect." And for the first time in weeks, Devin slept without nightmares. 8 weeks passed. Elena's recovery was slow but steady. The first week in the hospital was the hardest. She had to relearn basic motor functions, strengthen the left side of her body that the surgery had temporarily weakened, work through the cognitive fog that clouded her thoughts. But she fought. Every day, every hour, she fought to reclaim herself. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, endless appointments, adjustments to medications, small victories celebrated like championships. By week 3, she could walk without assistance. By week 5, she was reading again, her comprehension returning. By week 7, she'd moved back home, though she still needed help with some daily tasks. The Michael Jordan Foundation had covered everything, not just the surgery, but all the follow-up care, the medications, even the transportation costs to and from appointments. They'd also sent a care package, a signed basketball, a Bulls jersey with Elena 23 on the back, and a handwritten note from Jordan himself. "Elena, heard you're fighting like a champion. Keep it up, the world is better with you in it. MJ." Elena had cried when she read it, then insisted it be framed and hung in the living room where she could see it every day. On a Thursday afternoon in late May, 3 months after the surgery, there was a knock on the Martinez apartment door. Devin answered it to find a delivery person holding a large envelope with the Michael Jordan Foundation logo. "Delivery for Devin Martinez?" Inside the envelope were 2 tickets to a Bulls playoff game scheduled for the following week. Also, a note in elegant script. "Devin and Elena, you didn't get a proper chance to enjoy a game last time. Consider this a do-over? VIP seats? Meet and greet after? Bring your poster. Michael Jordan." Elena, who was sitting on the couch doing physical therapy exercises with resistance bands, looked up when Devin showed her the tickets. "He remembered us," she said softly. "Of course he remembered us," Devin replied. "How could he forget?" The night of the game, Elena wore her new jersey, Elena 23, and a baseball cap to cover the hair that was still growing back from where they'd shaved it for surgery. She moved slowly, still building stamina, but she moved. They sat in seats so close to the court that Devin could hear the players calling plays. The Bulls were playing the Magic in the Eastern Conference Finals. The game was electric, the crowd deafening, and Michael Jordan, as always, was magnificent. He scored 38 points, including the game-winning shot with 5.2 seconds left. The United Center erupted. Jordan stood at center court, arms raised, accepting the roar of the crowd like a king receiving tribute. Afterward, a security guard escorted Elena and Devin, along with Rosa, who'd been given a third ticket, to a private room. This time there were no crowds, no other contest winners, just them. When Jordan entered, his face lit up with genuine pleasure. Elena. He crossed the room and hugged her carefully, mindful of her still healing body. Look at you. You look amazing. Thanks to you, Elena said, her voice thick with emotion. Mr. Jordan, I don't have words big enough to thank you. You saved my life. Your brother saved your life, Jordan corrected gently. I just wrote some checks. He's the one who had the courage to ask. That's the hard part. He turned to Devin. You bring your poster? Devin held it up. The same poster, now worn at the edges from being held so many times, both sides signed by Jordan from that night 3 months ago. Jordan studied it, reading his own message to Elena. Then he smiled. You know what? I think this poster needs one more thing. He pulled out a marker and flipped the poster to the back, writing below his original signature. Devin, you took the impossible shot and it went in. That's what heroes do. Elena, you fought and you won. That's what champions do. Keep making the impossible possible, both of you. MJ, May 1996. There, Jordan said, handing it back. Now it's complete. The whole story. The ask, the fight, the victory. They talked for 20 minutes about Elena's recovery, about Devin's basketball season at school. He'd made varsity as a 7th grader, the youngest player on the team, about the Bulls' playoff run, about everything and nothing. Finally, as they were preparing to leave, Jordan pulled Devin aside. Can I tell you something? Jordan's voice was quiet, serious. Of course. What you did, asking for help when you needed it, that's going to stay with me. I've met thousands of kids over the years. Most of them want autographs or pictures or to tell me I'm great. But you showed me what real courage looks like. You reminded me why I do the charity work, why it matters. So thank you, Devin. Thank you for letting me be part of your story. Devin didn't know what to say to that. How do you respond when your hero thanks you? Your welcome seemed too small. It was nothing, was a lie. So instead, Devin just said, you taught me to take the shot, even when it seems impossible. You've been teaching me that my whole life through watching you play. I just finally listened. Jordan smiled, that brilliant, warm smile that had graced 1,000,000 commercials and magazine covers. And it was real, genuine. Meant just for Devin. Keep listening, kid, and keep taking those shots. The world needs people like you. 5 years later, Devin Martinez stood at center court of his high school gymnasium, wearing his team's number 23 jersey. The championship game was tied, 2 points down, 3 seconds on the clock. In the stands, Elena, now healthy, in college studying social work, her hair grown back thick and glossy, stood with Rosa and Marcus and Mrs. Chen, all of them screaming themselves hoarse. The ball was inbounded to Devin at the top of the key. The defender was in his face, arms up, cutting off the drive. Devin could feel the clock ticking down in his bones. 3, he dribbled right, the defender following. 2, he stepped back, creating just enough space. 1, he rose up, his body remembering thousands of hours of practice in that tiny apartment living room, in the community center, in gyms across the city. His form was perfect, elbow in, wrist cocked, eyes on the rim. The defender's hand was in his face. The shot was impossible. Everyone in the gym knew it. But Devin had learned something 3 years ago, standing in front of Michael Jordan with a poster that said, "My sister is dying." Impossible just meant you hadn't tried yet. The ball left his fingers. Time seemed to stop as it arced through the air, rotating perfectly, climbing toward the basket. Devin's feet touched the ground. The buzzer sounded. The ball dropped through the net with a clean swish. The gym exploded. Devin's teammates rushed him, screaming, lifting him up. The crowd was going insane, but Devin's eyes went immediately to the stands, to Elena, who was jumping and crying and pointing at him with both hands. Both hands that worked perfectly now, that showed no sign of the tumor that had almost taken her. He pointed back at her. "This is for you. It's always been for you." Later, after the celebration had died down and the trophy had been awarded and his teammates had finally stopped dumping water on his head, Devin found Elena waiting outside the locker room. She hugged him fiercely. "I'm so proud of you, Pequeño." "I learned from the best." Devin pulled back to look at her. "My Michael Jordan." "No," Elena said, shaking her head. "We've been over this. I'm not your Michael Jordan. You know who is?" "Who?" "You are. You always have been. The courage you showed that night at the United Center, that came from inside you. Not from me, not from Jordan. From you." Devin thought about that, about the scared 11-year-old boy who'd flipped a poster around and shown the world his pain, about the desperate hope that had driven him to ask the impossible. "Maybe we're both heroes," he said finally. "You for fighting, me for asking for help, Michael Jordan for saying yes. Maybe that's the whole story. People being brave in different ways, and it all adds up to a miracle." Elena smiled. "I like that version. Let's go with that one." They walked out of the gym together into the cool evening air. Rosa was waiting by the car, beaming with pride. Marcus was already planning the celebration party. Mrs. Chen was taking pictures like a proud aunt. Devin's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Heard about your game winner. That's what champions do. Proud of you, kid. MJ." Devin showed Elena, and they both laughed, though tears were running down their faces. "He's still watching out for us," Elena said. "Yeah," Devin agreed. "I guess once you save someone's life, you don't really stop caring." They got in the car and drove home through the familiar streets of Pilsen, the same neighborhood, the same buildings, but somehow everything looked different now, brighter, full of possibility, because they'd learned the most important lesson, that sometimes the impossible shot goes in, that sometimes the world says yes, that sometimes asking for help is the bravest thing you can do, and that love, real, fierce, fight for you until the end love, can move mountains, save lives, and make miracles real. All you have to do is be brave enough to take the shot. 20 years later, March 28, 2016. Devin Martinez stood in front of a classroom full of 11-year-olds at Roberto Clemente Community Academy in Pilsen, the same neighborhood where he'd grown up. Outside the windows, the streets looked exactly as they had 2 decades ago. Same brick buildings, same corner stores, same fire escapes zigzagging down apartment facades. But so much had changed. "Mr. Martinez, is it true you really met Michael Jordan?" A girl in the front row, Destiny Williams, raised her hand eagerly. She had her hair in 2 puffs and wore a faded Bulls t-shirt that had probably belonged to an older sibling first. Devin smiled. "I did. Twice, actually." "What was he like?" asked another student, Marco, who sat in the back and usually never participated. "He was..." Devin paused, choosing his words carefully. "He was human. I know that sounds strange, but when you meet someone famous, you expect them to be like a superhero, untouchable. But Jordan was real. He listened. He cared. He saw me when I felt invisible." "Why did you feel invisible?" Destiny asked. Devin looked around the classroom, at the 23 kids who sat in front of him, most of them from families like his had been. Families where every dollar was stretched thin, where dreams felt like luxuries they couldn't afford, where asking for help felt like admitting defeat. How many of you have ever needed something, I mean really needed something, but were too scared to ask for it? Every hand went up. Devin nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." Today's the anniversary of the day that changed my life. 20 years ago exactly, I met Michael Jordan. But this isn't a story about meeting someone famous. It's a story about being brave enough to ask for help when you need it most. He pulled out a framed poster from his bag, worn and faded now, but still intact. The front showed Michael Jordan's number 23, colored in careful red marker. The back showed words that had been written in desperation, "My sister is dying," and covering both sides were signatures and messages from Jordan, added over the years, telling a story of courage and hope. 20 years ago today, my sister Elena was dying from a brain tumor. We couldn't afford the surgery that would save her life. I was 11 years old, your age, and I felt completely helpless. The classroom was silent now, every eye on him. But I had one chance, a contest to meet Michael Jordan, and I made a decision that terrified me. I wrote these 4 words on the back of my poster, and when I met him, I showed him the truth. I asked for help. "What did he do?" Marco asked quietly. He said yes. He paid for my sister's surgery. All of it. And because he did, Elena is alive today. She's a social worker now, helping families just like ours. She has 2 kids of her own. She got to live because I was brave enough to ask. Destiny's hand shot up again. But Mr. Martinez, what if he had said no? What if you asked and nothing happened? It was the question Devin had asked himself 1,000 times over the years. Then at least I would have tried, he said simply. And you know what I learned? Most people want to help. Most people have good hearts. But they can't help if they don't know you need it. Asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. It's saying I matter enough to fight for. The people I love matter enough to fight for. He set the poster on his desk where everyone could see it. I teach social studies, but the most important lesson I can give you has nothing to do with history or geography. It's this: when life gets hard, and it will get hard, don't suffer in silence. Find your courage, ask for help, take your shot, even when it seems impossible. The bell rang, signaling the end of class. As students filed out, several stopped to look at the poster more closely, running their fingers over Jordan's signatures with reverence. Marco lingered after everyone else had gone. "Mr. Martinez?" His voice was barely audible. "My mom's sick. Cancer. We can't afford all the treatments. I've been so scared, but I didn't know what to do." Devin's heart clenched. He knelt down to Marco's level, the same way Jordan had done with him 20 years ago. "Have you told anyone? A counselor? A teacher?" Marco shook his head. "I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to be the kid with problems." "Marco, listen to me. You already are that kid. We all are. Every single person has problems, struggles, pain. The difference is some people ask for help and some people don't. The ones who ask, they're the brave ones. But what if nothing? Tomorrow you and I are going to talk to Principal Vasquez. She knows every resource in the city. We're going to find help for your mom. Together, okay?" Marco's eyes filled with tears. "Okay." After Marco left, Devin sat at his desk for a long moment, looking at the poster. 20 years. 2 decades since that night that had changed everything. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. "Happy anniversary, Pequeño. 20 years since you saved my life. Dinner tonight at Mommy's? I'm making your favorite." Devin smiled and replied, "Wouldn't miss it. Love you." Another text came through, this one from a number he'd saved years ago, but rarely appeared. 20 years today. Time flies. Hope you're still taking those impossible shots. MJ. Every year on March 28th, Jordan sent a message. Sometimes just a few words, sometimes longer. He'd stayed in their lives in small but meaningful ways. A phone call when Devin graduated high school, a signed jersey when Elena got married, a congratulations text when Devin got his teaching job. The connection had become something neither of them had expected, a friendship built on a moment of vulnerability and compassion. Devin texted back, "Still taking shots, teaching kids to do the same. Thank you for everything, MJ. You changed more than just our lives." The response came immediately. "You did the hard part. Never forget that." That evening, Devin drove to his mother's apartment, a different one now, in a better neighborhood, paid for with the money Rosa had finally been able to save once Elena's medical bills weren't drowning them. She'd retired from both her jobs last year and now spent her time volunteering at the community center and spoiling her grandchildren. Elena's car was already in the parking lot, a modest sedan with car seats in the back. Her husband David was a teacher too. They'd met in graduate school, bonded over their shared mission to help underserved communities. Devin climbed the stairs to the second floor and knocked. The door flew open immediately and 2 small bodies crashed into his legs. "Uncle Dev!" 5-year-old Sophia and 3-year-old James, named after Michael Jordan's father, wrapped themselves around him like barnacles. "Hey, monsters!" Devin scooped them both up, one in each arm. "You guys get bigger every time I see you." "That's 'cause we eat our vegetables," Sophia said seriously. "Mama says you didn't when you were little. That's why you're short." Elena appeared in the hallway, laughing. "Sophia, that's not nice." "It's fine," Devin said, setting the kids down. "It's true, I am short, but I can still dunk on your dad." "Once," David called from the kitchen. "You dunked on me once, and you bring it up every time." The apartment was filled with the smell of arroz con gandules and pernil, Rosa's specialties. Photos covered every available surface. Elena and David's wedding, the kids at various ages, Rosa with her grandchildren, and there, in a place of honor above the TV, the framed poster with Jordan's signatures. Visitors always asked about it, and Elena or Devin would tell the story, watching people's faces transform as they understood what it represented. During dinner, with everyone gathered around the table, Rosa raised her glass of water. "A toast," she said, her voice still carrying the accent of her childhood in Puerto Rico. 20 years ago, I thought I was going to lose my daughter. I thought God had abandoned us, but He hadn't. He sent us an angel in the form of a little boy brave enough to ask for help, and another angel in the form of a man kind enough to give it." "Mommy," Elena said, tears already forming. "Let me finish." "Mija, today I look around this table and I see miracles. Elena, healthy and strong, with a family of her own. Devin, teaching children to be brave. My grandchildren who would never have existed if not for March 28, 1996. So today we remember, we give thanks, and we promise to pass on the lesson." "What lesson, Abuela?" Sophia asked. "That love is stronger than fear," Rosa said simply, "and that asking for help is not giving up. It's refusing to give up." They clinked glasses, water for the kids, wine for the adults, and drank to miracles and courage and second chances. After dinner, while David did the dishes and Rosa read to the kids, Elena and Devin sat on the small balcony overlooking the street. The March evening was cool but not cold, spring finally asserting itself after a long winter. "Do you ever think about it?" Elena asked. "About what would have happened if you hadn't gone to that game? If you'd stayed at the hospital with me?" "All the time," Devin admitted. "For years I had nightmares about making the wrong choice, about choosing you over the contest or choosing the contest over you, and either way ending in disaster. But you made the right choice. I made the brave choice. There's a difference. Right implies there was a clear answer. Brave just means I chose action over paralysis." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. "My little brother, the philosopher." "Your little brother, the guy who got lucky." "No." Elena sat up, turning to face him. "You know what Jordan always says. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. You prepared by loving me fiercely enough to fight for me. The opportunity was the contest, but the luck, that was all skill. Pequeño." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching cars pass below, listening to the sounds of their old neighborhood. Sirens in the distance, music from an open window, children playing in an alley. "Marco," Devin said suddenly, "a kid in my class, his mom has cancer. They can't afford treatment. He told me today." Elena turned to him, her social worker instincts immediately engaged. "What kind of cancer? What hospital? Does he have insurance?" "I don't know yet. We're meeting with Principal Vasquez tomorrow to figure out next steps." "I'll make some calls," Elena said immediately. "I know people at Northwestern, at Rush, at the University of Chicago. We'll find resources. We'll help him. Just like Jordan helped us." "Exactly like Jordan helped us." Elena smiled. "That's the thing about miracles, Dev. They're supposed to multiply. One act of kindness creates ripples that spread outward forever. Jordan saved me. Now we save Marco's mom. And maybe someday Marco saves someone else. That's how the world gets better. One impossible shot at a time." The next day, true to her word, Elena made calls. Devin met with Marco and his mother, Mrs. Hernandez, and Principal Vasquez. Within a week, they'd connected Mrs. Hernandez with a charitable program that covered cancer treatments for uninsured patients. Within a month, she'd started chemotherapy. It wasn't the same as Jordan writing a check. This was slower, more bureaucratic, required more paperwork and patience. But it was the same principle. People with resources helping people without them. Not because they had to, but because they could. Because someone had done it for them once. And paying it forward was the only proper response to grace. 5 years later, on March 28, 2021, Devin received an unexpected email. The subject line read, 25th Anniversary Celebration. The message was from the Michael Jordan Foundation, inviting him and Elena to a special event in Chicago, honoring the foundation's work over the past quarter century. The event would feature stories from families who'd been helped over the years. They want us to speak, Devin told Elena over the phone, to tell our story. In front of how many people? 300 maybe. Donors, board members, other families, and Jordan will be there. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then, we should do it. Our story might give someone else courage to ask for help. That matters more than being nervous. So on a warm spring evening, Devin and Elena, now 36 and 41 years old respectively, stood on a stage at the Four Seasons Hotel in Chicago. The ballroom was packed with people in formal wear, the kind of event where champagne flowed and diamonds glittered. But when Devin looked out at that crowd, he didn't see wealth or power. He saw people who'd chosen to use their resources to help others. People who'd said yes when asked for help. 25 years ago, Devin began, his voice steady despite his hammering heart. I was 11 years old and my sister was dying. He told the story, the same story he'd told his students, but fuller now, richer with the perspective of time. He talked about poverty and fear and the weight of impossible choices. He talked about Elena's courage, Rosa's prayers, and his own desperation. Elena took over for the middle part, describing the tumor, the surgery, the long recovery. She talked about waking up after 9 hours of brain surgery and seeing Devin's face, knowing that her little brother had saved her life by being brave enough to ask a stranger for help. But here's what we want you to understand, Elena said, looking directly at the audience. Michael Jordan's money paid for the surgery. That's true, but the real gift was something else. It was being seen. It was having someone with power and resources look at two kids from Pilsen and say, you matter. Your life matters. Your struggle matters. Her voice broke slightly. That's what changed us. Not the money, though we're grateful for it beyond words, but the recognition that we were worth saving, that our story mattered, that asking for help wasn't shameful but brave. Devin took the microphone back. In the 25 years since that night, Elena and I have tried to pay forward what was given to us. Elena is a social worker who's helped hundreds of families navigate medical crises. I'm a teacher who tells our story every year, hoping to give my students courage to ask for help when they need it. We do this because we learn that miracles aren't just things that happen to you. Sometimes you have to be the miracle for someone else. The audience applauded. Several people were wiping their eyes. Then Michael Jordan himself took the stage. He was older now, in his late 50s, his hair gray, his face lined. But he moved with the same confidence, the same presence that had made him a legend. He hugged Elena first, then Devin. 25 years, Jordan said into the microphone. Quarter of a century since this young man showed me 4 words that changed my perspective on what it means to help people. He gestured to a screen behind them, where an image of the poster appeared, both sides visible, showing Devin's desperate plea and all of Jordan's messages accumulated over the years. My sister is dying, Jordan read aloud. 4 words. No manipulation, no pitch, no fancy presentation. Just truth. Raw, honest, desperate truth. And you know what that taught me? That the people who need help most are often too scared to ask. They're worried about being judged, about seeming weak, about being a burden. Jordan turned to face the audience directly. The Michael Jordan Foundation has helped thousands of families over the years. We've paid for surgeries, funded educations, built clinics, supported communities. But every single one of those efforts traces back to this moment, to this kid brave enough to flip a poster around and show me his pain. He looked at Devin. You taught me that having money isn't enough. Having influence isn't enough. What matters is creating a world where people feel safe asking for help, where vulnerability is seen as strength, not weakness, where a kid with nothing can stand in front of someone with everything and say, I need you, without shame. The applause was thunderous. Backstage, after the speeches were over and the formal program had ended, Jordan pulled Devin and Elena aside. "I have something for you," he said. He handed them a small wooden box. Inside were 2 rings, simple gold bands engraved with words. Elena's read, "Worth fighting for." Devin's read, "Brave enough to ask." "I had these made for the 20th anniversary but never found the right moment to give them to you," Jordan said. "Consider them reminders. Elena, you're worth every fight, every struggle, every impossible effort. Devin, you had the courage to ask when asking felt impossible. Don't ever forget that." They put on the rings, and Elena immediately started crying. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "I know, but I wanted to. You two have become more than just a charity story to me. You've become friends, family even, and family takes care of each other." Present day, 2026. Devin Martinez, now 41 years old, sat in his classroom on March 28, 2026, exactly 30 years since the night that changed everything. His students had just left for the day, but one remained. A girl named Amara, 12 years old, with thick glasses and a quiet demeanor that reminded him of himself at that age. "Mr. Martinez," she said hesitantly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. You always tell the story about your sister, about asking Michael Jordan for help. But what if—" She twisted her hands together nervously. "What if you're too scared? What if the words won't come out?" Devin recognized the look in her eyes, fear and hope wrestling for dominance. "Are you okay, Amara? Is something wrong?" She shook her head, then nodded, then shook it again. Finally, "My dad lost his job. We might lose our apartment. My mom cries at night when she thinks we can't hear. I want to help, but I'm just a kid. What can I do?" Devin's heart ached for her. He came around his desk and sat in the student chair next to hers. "First, you did the hardest part. You told someone. You asked for help. That took courage." He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. "Elena? Yeah, I need your help." 30 minutes later, Elena walked into the classroom. She'd taken the afternoon off work the moment Devin called, just like she always did when someone needed help. Together, they sat with Amara and made a list of resources: food banks, rental assistance programs, job placement services. They called Amara's mother and set up a meeting to connect the family with every available resource. It wasn't a miracle like Jordan's check had been. It was smaller, more practical, more complicated, but it was the same principle. See someone in pain. Don't look away. Help. As Amara left the classroom, her shoulders a little straighter, her face a little less afraid, Elena turned to Devin. 30 years, she said. "We've been doing this for 30 years now, helping people, paying it forward." "Do you ever get tired?" Devin asked. "Never, because I remember what it felt like to be the one who needed help, to feel hopeless. And I remember what it felt like when someone said yes." She touched the ring on her finger, worth fighting for, a habit she'd developed over the years. Every person we help, every family we connect to resources, every kid we teach to be brave. That's Jordan's gift multiplying. That's the impossible shot going in over and over again. Devin looked at his own ring, brave enough to ask, and nodded. "You know what the best part is?" he said. "What?" "Amara will remember this. In 20 years, when she's a teacher or a social worker or whatever she becomes, she'll remember that someone helped her family when they needed it, and she'll help someone else. That's how miracles work. They don't just happen once. They echo forward through time, touching lives we'll never know about, creating ripples that spread forever." Elena smiled. "Michael Jordan probably has no idea how many lives he's touched through us. Maybe we should tell him." So that night, Devin sent an email to Jordan's personal assistant, a woman named Patricia, who'd become their point of contact over the years. "Patricia, can you pass a message to MJ? Tell him it's been 30 years since the night that changed our lives. Tell him that Elena and I have spent those 30 years paying forward the gift he gave us. Tell him we've helped hundreds of families, maybe thousands if you count all the people our students have gone on to help. Tell him that one act of kindness in 1996 created ripples that are still spreading in 2026. Tell him we remember, we honor the gift, And we're teaching the next generation to be brave enough to ask for help when they need it. Thank you for everything, Devin and Elena. The response came 2 days later, not from Patricia, but from Jordan himself. Devin and Elena, 30 years, that's a lifetime. That's a legacy. I'm proud of you both, not because of what I did, but because of what you've done with it. Keep taking those impossible shots. Keep making miracles real. The world needs more people like you. MJPS. My foundation is establishing the Devin and Elena Martinez Scholarship Fund for students who demonstrate courage in asking for help. Seemed fitting. When Devin read that to Elena over the phone, they both cried because they'd learned, really, truly learned, the lesson that would define their lives. That courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and asking anyway. It's about taking the impossible shot even when missing seems certain. It's about loving people fiercely enough to fight for them. And it's about remembering that every act of kindness, no matter how small, creates ripples that spread far beyond what we can see. The poster still hung in Devin's classroom, faded now, the signatures barely visible, the colors muted by time. But the story it told was as vibrant as ever, a story of desperation and hope. Of a sister worth fighting for and a brother brave enough to ask. Of a hero who said yes when he could have said no. And of miracles that multiply when people choose courage over fear. Every year on March 28th, Devin told that story to a new group of students. And every year, at least one of them found the courage to take their own impossible shot. That was the real legacy. Not the surgery or the money or even the famous signature on a poster, but the courage that spread from person to person, year after year, life after life. The courage that said, you matter, your story matters. And asking for help isn't weakness, it's the bravest thing you can do. That was Michael Jordan's true gift, and it would keep giving forever. So now you know the whole story. 4 desperate words on a poster, 1 brave kid, and a hero who said yes when he could have said no. That's how miracles happen, when someone is brave enough to ask for help and someone else is kind enough to give it. We want to hear from you. Where are you watching this video from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Every subscription helps us spread more stories of kindness and courage to people who need to hear them. Remember, asking for help isn't weakness, it's bravery. And being kind enough to help someone, that's what real heroes do. There's another incredible story waiting for you right now. Click the video on your screen to watch it next. Thanks for being here and keep taking those impossible shots. You never know when one might go in.